Thanks for your patience. Here we go. Senate will come to order. All those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber. Those in the gallery and those on the floor will please rise as we're led in prayer by Mike Harper, pastor of North Hills Baptist Church in Charleston, West Virginia. Please remain standing after the prayer as the Senator from Marshall leads us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor.
Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day that you blessed us with. And Lord, we thank you for your love and many blessings. And Father, we thank you for this great state of West Virginia. What a privilege it is to live in it and to serve in it. And Father, we pray for not only our state, but our country and our world. Father, it's been a rough couple years, and there's a lot of evil going on. And Father, we especially lift up the people of Ukraine, and I can't imagine the fear that is going through that country right now. And I just pray, Father, that you will indeed protect the innocent. And Father, we'd be great, Father, if you would intervene on behalf of those people. And as a country and as citizens of this great land, Father, we need to lift up these people. Father, we pray for President Biden and Vice President Harris, as well as those that serve in Congress. Father, we pray that you will grant them your wisdom and direction, and our prayer as a people is that they will follow it. And Father, we lift up our Governor, Jim Justice, Father, as he continues to lead our state through this pandemic. Lord, we pray for our state senators here in this chamber, as well as those that serve across the hall in the House of Delegates. Father, we ask you, Father, to give them your wisdom and direction as they create laws, Father, that will help the people of this state. Father, we lift up our first responders, those that are on the front line. And Father, as a father, I pray for my son, Daniel, that is serving in the Air Force right now. And I pray for those military families that I'm sure are having fear right now about the what-ifs of what's happening in this world. Father, I would pray, Father, that as a citizen, that you will lift up every military man and woman that are serving our country, whether they'll be here in the States or out somewhere in this world, Lord, that you will protect them. And Lord, as a people, we come to you seeking your help. As the psalmist said, I will lift up my eyes unto the hills from whence cometh my help cometh from the Lord. Father, this state needs you, our country needs you, and this world needs you. Father, we thank you, Lord, for the privilege of gathering here this day. In Jesus' precious name we do pray, and amen.
Amen. Thank you. Senator from Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the members of the Senate and all others in the gallery please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reading the journal.
West Virginia Legislature Senate Journal, February 23, 2022. The Senate met at 11:03 a.m. Senator Blair, Mr. President, in the chair.
Senior Senator from the 5th requests unanimous consent that further reading the journal is dispensed with and the journal be approved. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Further reading the journal is dispensed with and the journal is approved. Introduction to guest. On behalf of the Senate, it is my pleasure to welcome our honorary pages for the day. Please stand and be recognized as your name is called. On behalf of the, as guest is the Senator from Wood, Ava Van Dyke, Zane Van Fossen, Gabe Van Fossen, Patrick Arnold, Logan Arnold. As guest is the junior Senator from the 8th, Cassidy Johnson, Reese Holbert, Liza Lucas, Carly Monk, and Katie Saline. Will the Senate please make them feel welcome? Further introductions. Senator from Wood.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the senior senator from the 3rd and myself, I just want to introduce some guests in the President's Gallery. Mr. President, today we have with us, seated in the President's Gallery, the chaperones for our five of our honorary pages from both Blennerhassett Middle School and Parkersburg South High School. So if you'll please stand as I call your names up there. Chaperone for Ava Van Dyke is her mother, Samantha Van Dyke, who is also a teacher at Blennerhassett Elementary, and her sister, Veda Van Dyke. Chaperones for Zane and Gabe Van Fossen are their parents, Scott Van Fossen, who's in emergency medicine at WVU Medicine, Camden Clark, and their mother, Susan Van Fossen, who is also a teacher at Blennerhassett Middle School. And chaperones for Patrick and Logan Arnold are their parents, Craig and Amy Arnold, and Amy is also the director of corporate compliance at WVU Medicine, Camden Clark. If the Senate would make them welcome.
Senior Senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Seated in our North Gallery, we have Michael Lipton. Michael, if you will, stand up. He's the director of the West Virginia Music Hall of Fame. There's 2 stores in the Charleston Town Center. He works with Mountain Stage, and there's going to be a 9th induction ceremony in April of 2023. I was walking out here in the rotunda, and I heard a little 3-piece live band playing, and I went over to find out more, and Michael and a couple of his friends were doing an awesome job on a Hank Williams Jr. cover that really got my attention, and I wanted to make sure that everyone here knew about him and what he's doing. Senator, if you will, join me and make Michael welcome.
Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like for the Senate to welcome a number of people, actually. The first one's Ann Kegler. She's a volunteer for AARP, a capital advocacy team. I think she's here at either one of these galleries. Maybe not. Also, this is West Virginia History Day, and we have a number of award winners in the gallery who received honors for their efforts in West Virginia history. The first person I want to introduce there in the West Gallery is Deborah Bartow of Wheeling, nominated by the Cockney Farmstead. Please stand. Peter Shokalis of Wheeling, nominated by the Ohio Valley Civil War Roundtable. Please stand. Stephen Davis, he's not here. Lisa Singer, nominated by the Victorian Old Town Wheeling. Please stand. And Wendy Scatterday, nominated by Friends of Wheeling Incorporated. Please give all these people a welcome. I hope I haven't missed anybody up there. Thank you.
Junior Senator from the 8th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Today we have with us, seated in the President's Gallery, the chaperones for our Honorary Pages from Elkview Middle School. If they could stand as I call their names: Reese Holbert's mother, Emily Holbert; Liza Lucas's aunt, Nicole Chandler; Carly Monk's mother, Lori Monk; and Katie Salah's father, Larry Salah. If they could all stand, and if the Senate could make them feel welcome. Yes, in addition to those fine students from Elkview Middle School, Mr. President, we have here on your behalf and on behalf of the senior senator from the 8th, the AP Government Corps students and current event students from Riverside High School. They're here with their teacher, Amber Farrell, and Miss Childers. If they could all stand up, and if the Senate can make them feel welcome.
Senator from Wood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Also here for West Virginia History Day, I believe they're here, are a couple from Wood County that are among the 24 history heroes, Jeff and Christy Little of Parkersburg. Are these folks here? There they are, if we would make them feel welcome.
Further introductions? Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. There is a person here, not actually from he's not from West Virginia, he's an interloper from Ohio, but he does a lot. It's Harry W. White of St. Clair School, Ohio, was nominated by Ohio Valley Civil War Roundtable for 2021, received the award today from the Historical Society. Harry White, will you please stand up?
Senator from Brooke.
Mr. President, it's my pleasure and yours to introduce a couple of close friends of mine that are here in the North Gallery, Jonathan and Sydney Hoover. Sydney is a psychologist and a lieutenant in the Navy who has recently been awarded the Junior Provider of the Year Award by the Military Allied Health System for her service to the country at Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. And Jonathan is a major in the Air Force. He's a JAG officer. He's stationed in Indiana. His services to the country has taken him to Guantanamo Bay, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Afghanistan, and Iraq. So if the Senate could please welcome Major Hoover and Lieutenant Hoover.
Further introductions. Senator from Preston.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the senator from Tucker and myself, we're pleased to have a few people here from the 14th Senate District who were recognized as history heroes earlier today. And from Arthurdale Heritage, we have Linda Flemmer. She's in the North Gallery and chaperoned by a Preston High student, Haley Moyers. In addition, we believe Tom Piles from the Mineral County Historical Society and Phil Watring from the Rollsburg Area Historical Society are here also. Please make them welcome.
Further introductions. Senator from Summers.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your behalf and on behalf of the senior senator from the 10th, it's my pleasure to introduce two of our history heroes from the 10th Senatorial District. We have the Vice President of the Summers County Historical Society and avid researcher, interviewer, and author, Ron Lilly, and his wife, Janie. Would you stand and let the Senate make you welcome? Also, Mr. President, we have with us the voice of the Greenbrier, a man with a long history at America's Resort, the Greenbrier, 43 years to be exact, a member of the Board of Directors of the Greenbrier Historical Society for over 2 decades, and former chairman of the Archives and History Commission, Dr. Robert Conte. Mr. Conte, would you please stand?
Are there further introductions? Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of House Bill 3082, stabilizing funding sources for the DEP Division of Air Quality.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4344 relating to foster care.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources and then the Committee on Finance.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4345 relating to motor vehicle registration cards by establishing electronic or mobile registration cards.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
House Bill 4391 relating generally to school nurses.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Education and then the Committee on Finance. Clerk, pause. Further communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of House Bill 4462 relating to deferred retirement option plan evaluations.
Junior Senator from the 17th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 4462 is the same bill that we passed here last week, Senate Bill 532, 532. I ask for unanimous consent. Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that the bill be read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Clerk will read the bill first time.
House Bill 4462 relating to deferred retirement option plan evaluations. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced. And the message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Pensions and then the Committee on Finance.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4479 establishing the Coalfield Communities Grant Facilitation Commission.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Economic Development and then the Committee on Finance.
House Bill 4496 allowing interest and earnings on federal COVID-19 relief monies to be retained in the funds or accounts where those monies are invested.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4607 to remove opioid treatment programs from requiring a certificate of need.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources.
House Bill 4636, clarifying when business and occupation taxes owed to a city or municipality are considered to be remitted on time.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
House Bill 4643, exempting certain health services from certificate of need.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Resources.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4667, prohibition on county, city, or municipality restrictions on advanced air mobility aircraft.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Economic Development and then to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4668, relating to airbag fraud.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
House Bill 4758, relating to developing and maintaining a database to track reclamation liabilities of the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection Special Reclamation Program.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Energy, Industry, and Mining.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4768, relating to change hearing location and customer notice provisions.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
House Bill 4769, eliminate the requirement to send recommended decisions by certified mail.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4785, relating to judicial vacancies.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4797 to create an EV infrastructure deployment plan for West Virginia that describes how our state intends to use its share of NEVI formula program funds.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Economic Development.
The Clerk of the House announced the adoption by that body of the following resolutions naming roads and bridges. House Concurrent Resolution 81, House Concurrent Resolution 83, House Concurrent Resolution 84, and House Concurrent Resolution 87.
Senate will be at ease for a moment. Messages will be received and the resolutions will be referred to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. Communications from the Executive.
There are none.
Reports from standing committees.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration committee substitute for Senate Bill 64, allowing county commissions to impose amusement tax, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Eric J. Tarr, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration Senate Bill 100, establishing secondary location for racetrack video lottery terminals, and reports back a committee substitute for same with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Eric J. Tarr, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 232, relating to punishment for second or third offense felony, and reports back a committee substitute for same with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development has had under consideration Senate Bill 424, relating generally to 2022 Farm Bill.
Report will be received. Senior Senator from the 4th. No, hold on. He hadn't finished.
And reports back a committee substitute for same with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Dave Seipolt, Chair.
Report will be received. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to waive the second reference to finance. There is no fiscal impact.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 590, clarifying that tenancy includes persons who reside in sober living home, and reports back a committee substitute for same with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Economic Development has had under consideration Senate Bill 662, relating to creation, expansion, and authority of Resort Area District, and reports back a committee substitute for same with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass. Respectfully submitted, Chandler Swope, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Joint Resolution 9, Disabled Veterans Exemption from Ad Valorem Property Taxation Amendment, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it be adopted, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received, and under the original double committee reference, the resolution will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development has had under consideration Senate Concurrent Resolution 52, originating in committee, requesting the Joint Committee on Government and Finance to conduct a formal feasibility study on the viability of establishing an accredited School of Veterinary Medicine in West Virginia, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it be adopted. Respectfully submitted, Dave Seipolt, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Economic Development has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4002, creating the Certified Sites and Development Readiness Program, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but with the further recommendation that it first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Chandler Swope, Chair.
Report will be received. Senator from Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent the bill be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Your Committee on Economic Development has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4084, relating to advanced recycling, and has amended same, and reports the same back with a recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Chandler Swope, Chair.
Report will be received. Reports from select committees.
There are none.
Introduction to bill, Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that Senate Bill 715 through Senate Bill 720 be considered and introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on our chamber automation system.
Senior Senator from the 17th requests unanimous consent that Senate Bill 715 through Senate Bill 720 be considered and introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Resolutions.
Senate Resolution 40 by Senators Lindsay, Hamilton, Stallings, Baldwin, Plymel, Romano, Beach, and Jeffries, affirming support for Ukrainian sovereignty.
Junior Senator from the 8th.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for the immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be put upon its adoption.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 40, affirming support for Ukrainian sovereignty, the people of Ukraine, and their right to self-determination.
Question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Junior Senator from the 8th.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Resolution 4, what it does and what it says is we're standing as a body in solidarity with the duly elected government of the Ukraine and the people of the Ukraine, and condemn and also in condemnation of the Russian aggression and invasion of the Ukraine that just took place in the last 24 hours. The Ukrainian people, close to 80% of the Ukrainian population identify as Ukrainian. The Ukraine has enjoyed self-governance since its separation from the Soviet Union in August of 1991. The Ukraine country is overwhelmingly Christian. And I believe it's important that we stand and make a statement in support of their sovereignty, their right of self-determination. The only crime that they have committed is the consideration of joining NATO and the EU. As I understand it, and from reports, the President Putin of Russia believed that, or it's his goal to unite the former Soviet satellites, and we should stand in opposition uniformly and overwhelmingly in opposition to that. As a personal note, my father's mother, Erika Zayberg, was Latvian. She was a refugee during World War II. The only peace she had as a child was the interval between World War I and World War II, where they had their own government. When the Soviets came back through at World War II, they murdered all World War I veterans of Latvia. So that's what we're dealing with, and I think we need to stand in opposition to it, and I ask for the Chamber's support. Thank you.
Further discussion. Senator from Brooke.
Mr. President, I want to follow up on the very well put together and well thought out remarks by the junior senator from the 8th, and I think everybody here last week heard me refer and talk about this very instance, and especially the comment that was made in the 2012 presidential debates by former President Obama. But particularly on those comments about the Ukrainian couple that I have become friends with, my wife and I have become friends with, who live in Weirton. And to follow on to the junior senator from the 8th's comments, they came here because the Orthodox priest in Weirton comes from the same small town that they are from. And so when they said, we want to move to the United States to escape what's coming in Ukraine and what has been going on since 2014, he said, well, come to Weirton where I live. And so that's how they landed in West Virginia, because they were following their faith. And so we are looking at a situation now, Mr. President, where the sovereignty of a separate nation is being invaded by somebody with malice aforethought, who has been planning this in a long game, but yet lying to the world on a grand stage that he had no intentions. And this is a self-created crisis by Mr. Putin. And so I wholeheartely stand in support of this resolution, and I hope, Mr. President, that our nation does as well. I think it's, very briefly, I think that it's no surprise to anyone in here how I feel about the Biden administration and how they handled the exit from Afghanistan and the country that myself and thousands and thousands of other service members served in. And I have very little faith in the president when it comes to foreign policy. But I will say this, the president's success in handling this matter is the success of the Western world and the United States. And so I am praying for our president's success in handling this matter as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? Senator from Wyoming, followed by the Senator Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. In 1968, as a young student, I watched the Soviet tanks on television come across the border of Czechoslovakia and destroy Alexander Dubček's Prague Spring. That was so emotional to me then that it still is today. They're doing it again. We must stand with those who seek democracy. Thank you.
Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, unanimous consent that the remarks by the junior senator from the 8th, the senator from Brooke, and the senator from Wyoming be placed in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also wanted to briefly say, you know, it can be an awfully small world. Right here in Charleston, my stepbrother's wife, she lives here. She's Ukrainian. She works at the federal courthouse. She has a brilliant legal mind. She's serving this nation and this state right now as a Ukrainian. Her family is still in the Ukraine. Her mother was being evacuated to safety earlier today. Her father serves in the reserves and is now in the process of being called up to defend his homeland and his country. This can be an awfully small world. Our hearts, our prayers, our thoughts go out to all those who are in that situation right now. As the gentleman who prayed this morning said, I cannot imagine what it is like to be in that situation. But we can come together as a nation. We can come together as a Senate, as a people, and stand up for what's right. And so I greatly appreciate the Senate doing that today. Thank you, Mr. President.
So further discussion, Senator from Wood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to rise and in support of this resolution. I appreciate it very much. I think that all of America was shaken, at least to some extent, watching Putin, who cut his teeth in the bowels of the communist KGB years ago, which was a Marxist organization, and you're watching Marxism play out here again. And Marxism slew its hundreds of millions in the 20th century. Stalin slew probably 20 to 30 million. Mao, probably 100 million. Pol Pot, and so on, to where you have over 100 million people slain, brutally starved to death by Marxist regimes in the 20th century. And we want to make sure in America, in the state of West Virginia, that we stand up and say that we are not a Marxist country and never will be. We are not a Marxist state and never will be. We will not teach Marxism in our public schools. We will teach the Constitution. We will teach the Declaration of Independence. We will teach that our nation was started as a Christian nation and grew exponentially to become the greatest nation in the world, not because of the Marxism of Putin, but because of the principles that were passed on from the beginning of our nation, from Plymouth and Jamestown. So it's a scary thing watching what's going on, but we know that God's in control either way, and we know that we must do our due diligence and stand up and say we are going to be everlastingly a constitutional republic under the grace of God. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Summers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just ask unanimous consent that the remarks from the senior senator from the 10th and the senator from Wood be placed in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Senator from Cabell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to place the remarks of the senator from the articulate remarks of the senator from Wood into the appendix, but that's happened. I'll just add to echo the comments that have been made earlier. And I'll emphasize the word autocrats, because Russia is being run by autocrats, and the profit and the corruption that is motivating this attack must be mentioned as well. I mean, it's just absolutely raw power exercised for evil means. I say cut off their oil and gas exports and starve them out. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? Roll call's been demands. Demand sustained. Demand is sustained. All those in favor of this resolution will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine, ascertain the results on this question. 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare this resolution approved. Motions. Petitions.
There are none.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our question unanimous consent to return to the fourth order of business.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Reports from standing committees.
Your Committee on Economic Development has had under consideration Senate Bill 721, originating in committee, relating to municipalities required to be represented on county authority boards, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass. Respectfully submitted, Chandler Swope, Chair.
Report will be received. Unfinished business.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 34, naming the U.S. Marine Corps Sergeant Major Herman H. Bronner Memorial Bridge.
Question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope you'll bear with me for a few seconds. This is, we do a lot of bridges in here, and they're always for people that are aptly entitled to the honor, but this one, to me, is very, very special. And first of all, I'd like to thank my friend from Upshur. This is in his district, and he was instrumental in getting this bill through, or this resolution through. Herman Bronner and his wife Fama are unique people. They adopted West Virginia after Herman's retirement from Louisiana Pacific out in Oregon. They pulled out a map and they looked where they wanted to live, and they moved down to Upshur County, bought a farm from the Jacks. It was the old Jacks farm, and they loved that farm. They loved West Virginia and lived here for many years. And that's really the aftermath of Herman and Fama's life. Herman entered World War II at 17, was a Marine, fought on the Saratoga. During Korea, he was a sergeant, was at Chosin Reservoir. Those that know your history will know about the frozen Chosin. And during Vietnam, he led a battalion into Hue City during the Tet Offensive. He had 9 Purple Hearts. That's a lot. He was wounded 13 times. I met him through a case. He got rear-ended in a car wreck, suffered a subdural hematoma, almost died. Insurance company played their usual games. After almost 2 years, when his statute was up, they offered him $2,500. Didn't work out real well for the insurance company. But I just realized what a great man he was. And we were in his deposition, and he was just an unassuming guy. You would never know that he ever picked up a rifle or ever had to shoot anybody, ever had to send men to their death, because he was just one of the most humble guys you could ever meet. And so, he woke up in Pittsburgh after brain surgery, and the defense attorney said, well, how'd you feel? And I can still remember Herman's smile and his response, I didn't feel too bad. The defense attorney got a big smile on his face, and so I got to re-cross-examination. I said, Mr. Bronner, I said, you were in World War II? Yeah. I said, you get wounded? Oh, yeah. I said, what was the worst wound you had? He said, well, we were on a ship, and he said a kamikaze hit us, and I got molten metal all up and down my back. I said, Korea, that was pretty bad. He said, yeah. I said, what was the worst wound you got in Korea? He said, we were out on patrol, and some North Korean ambushed us and threw a grenade into my platoon, and he said, I got shrapnel in the back of my leg. I said, that's pretty bad. And I said, what about Vietnam? He said, well, I'm a little embarrassed about Vietnam. He said, I stuck my head up when I shouldn't have, and a sniper shot me right through the side of the neck. I said, boy, that's terrible. I said, how'd you feel after all those wounds? He said, not too bad. So his wife was equally a hero, because he was deployed so often, and they moved around, all around the country, all around the world, lived and did things you could never imagine. He gave me some photographs from the World War II area era that were all different sizes. I've never seen anything like it, of Chinese people when they went in to help save China from the Japanese. And he ended his career as the head non-com MP for the South Pacific. He traveled to embassies, made sure they were doing their job all around the South Pacific. His wife, in her own way, was a hero too. No children. She's still alive, 97 years old, still lives alone, won't allow anybody to help her. She's, been through all kinds of medical things, but you just can't stop her. And she was a geranium expert. She cultivated some of the rarest strains of geraniums that the world had ever seen. People came from all around the world to buy just a little strip of it so they could grow the same thing. She judged the Queen's Flower Show in England, the LA Flower Show out in California, and they'd fly her out to do those things. So when they came to West Virginia, they thought they had free gas on the farm, but it only went to the residents. And she had this greenhouse that was about the size of this room. And she tended it every day, but it had to be heated, particularly in the winter. So Herman bought her a wood burner that looked like a locomotive. And he would cut her 30 cords of wood every fall by himself. And so that she could heat that greenhouse the entire winter. And one year, I started going down to help him, and he gave me a little 16-inch chainsaw. And as, I guess, a former timber guy, he had one that looked like it could cut down an entire row of people all at one time. It was about that long, like your fist, really big one. I was wore out after about 2 hours. He's like, sit down and rest. I'll finish it up. He's 30 years older than I am, still wielding that chainsaw like it was a sword. But they were great people. She still is a great person. And this bridge is so well deserved. And I'm so appreciative. And remember, they chose out of all the places in the United States to come here, Mr. President. Thank you.
So further discussion, Senator from Marion.
Ask unanimous consent that the remarks by the senator from Harrison be printed in the appendix of the journal. And I'll also ask for the yeas and nays while I'm up, Mr. President.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Is there further discussion? The yeas and nays have been demanded. Is the demand sustained? The demand is sustained. All those in favor of this resolution will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in affirmative, I declare this resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 37, naming the Harrison County Veterans Memorial Bridge.
Question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a long time coming. Again, I'd like to thank my colleague and friend who's Chairman of Transportation for getting this through. This bridge lies right next to the Veterans Hospital, the Lewis Johnson Veterans Hospital in Clarksburg. There could be no more fitting memorial to all the veterans in Harrison County than to name this brand new bridge, which is a beautiful span over the West Fork River in their honor for their sacrifices. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question is on adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Committee substitute for Senate Concurrent Resolution 45, naming the U.S. Army Corporal John D. Doyle Sr. Memorial Road.
Question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? If not, the question is on adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
House Concurrent Resolution 28, naming the Captain Billy Jake Smith Memorial Bridge.
Question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? If not, the question is on adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
House Concurrent Resolution 30, naming the U.S. Army Private Dallas H. Johnson World War II Memorial Bridge.
Question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Senator from Wetzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. There was an amendment to this bill in committee which struck the words World War II from the resolution because we are here to honor the man, not the event.
Does the clerk have an amendment?
Yes, sir. The Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure moved to amend the resolution.
Senator from Wetzel.
I ask adoption of the resolution amendment, which I just explained.
Is there objection to the unanimous consent to explain the amendment? No. Chair hears none. Senator from Wetzel has now explained it. Is there discussion? Question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the Senator from Wetzel. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the resolution?
No, sir.
The question is on adoption of the resolution as amended. Is there further discussion? If not, the question is adoption of the resolution as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
House Concurrent Resolution 59, naming the Warrant Officer James G. Bosley Memorial Bridge.
Question is on adoption of the resolution. Are there amendments?
Yes, sir. The Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure moved to amend the resolution.
Senator from Wetzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. The resolution originally admitted the honorees
Senator from Wetzel asks you to unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Wetzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. The resolution originally admitted the honorees military branch of the service, and it corrected some misspellings in the resolution. I urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the Senator from Wetzel. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the resolution?
No, sir.
The question is adoption of the resolution as amended. Is there further discussion? If not, the question is adoption of the resolution as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Bills on third reading. Senate will be at ease.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 230 relating generally to public employees grievance procedure. Third reading of the bill.
Senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to offer an amendment to the bill on third reading.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Does the clerk have an amendment?
Yes, sir. Senator Romano moved to amend the bill on page 13.
Senator from Harrison.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe I have the permission of my chair to say that he's on this amendment. This is a clarifying amendment that we discussed yesterday. I don't think it makes the bill any better, but it certainly makes it clear for the folks who are going to be interpreting this bill, and it simply makes clear the intent of the legislature that put on a finding of bad faith that attorney's fees and costs can be awarded but not to exceed $1,000. Mr. President, and I urge passage of the amendment.
Is there further discussion? Senator from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of the amendment. I think the amendment crafted by the senator from Harrison County clarifies the intention in the bill. I urge adoption.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the senator from Harrison. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be re-engrossed. Question now is on passage of the bill. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 230, as we discussed yesterday, amends sections in Chapter 6C of the state code in Article 2. Article 2 is the West Virginia Public Employees Grievance Procedure. We're requiring in this bill, if it's adopted, signed and notarized grievance forms. There are changes in this designed to require the grievance board to address motions to dismiss when they're filed on jurisdictional grounds before proceeding with other activity and hearing in the case. There are amendments regarding timeliness of grievances when they have to be filed. The bill provides that if a grievance is dismissed because of a technical issue, it's without prejudice, can be refiled as long as the grievance is still timely. The language that we just adopted in the amendment offered by the senator from Harrison is designed to push back a little bit, provide some deterrence of frivolous, malicious grievances that are filed in bad faith, or, I'll say again, frivolous defenses that are asserted in bad faith. Be happy to try to answer questions, Mr. President. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the... Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 23 yeas, 11 nays, 0 absent not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 371, authorizing miscellaneous boards and agencies to promulgate legislative rules. Third reading of the bill.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our question unanimous consent to amend on third.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Does the clerk have an amendment?
Yes, sir. Senator Takubo moved to amend the bill on page 1, section 1.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our question unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This simply removes the section of the rule that talked about standard of care, and what that does is would allow telehealth to be continued by any provider indefinitely without the requirement for a face-to-face visit. However, at the same time, it does add language that says that anytime a practitioner does not feel that the problem that is being taken care of can be properly handled via telehealth, that they can refuse to do that and allow the patient to come face-to-face. I urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the senior senator from the 17th. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be re-engrossed. The question now is on passage of the bill. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just briefly, I'll refresh members' memories. These telehealth rules were pulled out of the miscellaneous rules bundle. when we considered them in judiciary and when we considered the bundle on the floor because of issues regarding the matter which have now been resolved. You've heard the majority leader's explanation of the amendment adopted. I congratulate those who worked in negotiating that to completion, and I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there further discussion? If not, question for the Senate, this shall the bill pass. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting. Having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 463, Best Interests of Child Protection Act of 2022. Third reading of the bill. The bill is advanced to third reading with the right to amend.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. Senator Lindsay moved to amend the bill by striking out everything after the enacting clause.
Junior Senator from the 8th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Junior Senator from the 8th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. What this amendment seeks to do is to address the concerns raised by folks who were given testimony in Judiciary Committee, folks who believe they've been wronged by the family court system when it comes to custodial rights and custodial allocation, but doing so without replacing best interests of the child per se with the presumption of 50-50 from go. And so what it does is it sets out a goal of 50-50 custodial location. It states in pertinent part, it is a goal that equal 50-50 custodial allocation be achieved in every case, that each parent have as much time as possible with the child and is in the best interest of the child, absent findings of fact and conclusions of the court. I believe this amendment addresses, again, the concerns raised by folks who are in support of this particular bill, but also recognizes that every custodial issue that presents itself before the court is different and unique. It recognizes that not all parents should have equal responsibility from go. I mean, let's be honest. I was lucky to have both parents who raised me, but that's not the case in every situation. And so instead of creating this 50-50 presumption, regardless of the responsibilities of the parent, it recognizes that the best interests of the child that are of interest, but also that the goal should be 50-50 allocation based upon the facts and circumstances of each individual case. I don't do a lot of family law. I've probably been in family court 4 or 5 occasions. I dare say, without speaking to the Judiciary Chairman, that may be a little bit more than him or anyone else here. But I do recognize in those experiences that either parent seeks to weaponize this particular issue to their advantage. Here more recently, I didn't go to family court because we were here in the session, but a guy I go to the gym with, an AEP guy, his daughter had a 3-month-old child. The father of the child worked on a pipeline somewhere, and because of some issues in the relationship, threatened 50-50 responsibility of that child. This is an individual who spends most of his time away from the home. And he was seeking to weaponize it, even though that's not the law today. And I guarantee you, if we pass this bill without my amendment, that's going to become what's going to be, instead of the exception of the rule itself. And so I just ask that the members of this body support this amendment. Let's take a step back. Let's try to do everything right. Let's recognize the rights of all parents, that 50-50 should be the goal, but also allow the court flexibility to apply the law to each circumstance that comes before it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there discussion? Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to the gentleman's amendment to the bill. I will say first, before speaking against it, that I understand his angst. You know, I have had, as members of this body know, some of the same angst over the last couple of years as this issue has been considered by us. But it is my belief that the amendment should be rejected for this reason. For this reason, one of the things we're trying to do in this bill is be precise. The junior senator from the 8th used the phrase "from go," and that's the right phrase. It's accurate. It talks about what we're doing in this bill, if the body passes it, is whether or not we're going to create a presumption that the position from go should be 50-50. And depending on what happens with the amendment, we'll talk about how the bill addresses that after go. But what we need to do with the courts, I think in all cases, is try to be as precise as we can in the language that we use and what we tell them. So whether or not you think a presumption of 50-50 is a good idea, I will say this: a presumption is a well-defined, well-established term in the law. It has meaning. We use in the law presumptions all the time. We have in West Virginia the presumption, Mr. President, that the violation of a statute is evidence of negligence. It presumes that the law presumes that you've been negligent if you violate a statute. We have and use presumptions throughout the law in many cases. And the law is also quite familiar with the evidentiary standards and the presentation of evidence in cases where there are presumptions to rebut the presumption. And that's what the bill before us does. Now, I'll grant there are people that can make a strong argument that perhaps we shouldn't do that, but I don't know that the gentleman's amendment is a satisfactory substitution, Mr. President. If we put into the statute, instead of a presumption and rebuttal, which courts understand, they deal with every day. They know how to evaluate a presumption. They know how to evaluate whether a presumption has been rebutted by evidence. If we put into it a new standard, introduce a new concept of a goal, I fear, one of the things I fear, Mr. President, is that we're inviting a whole bunch of uncertainty and litigation, because that's not a concept that is common, at least in areas of law that I'm familiar with. Not like a presumption and the rebuttal of a presumption. So for that reason, Mr. President, while understanding the concerns of this junior senator from the 8th about where we're going, I urge the rejection of the senator's amendment.
Further discussion pertaining to the amendment before I recognize the junior senator from the 8th to close. Junior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you. I always appreciate the remarks and opinions of the Judiciary Chairman. This language for the amendment comes from the testimony of the judges before Judiciary Committee. Those are the individuals who are put in a position and know more than anyone else about how these family law matters are worked out. They were honest and saying from the outset that 50-50, when that happens, that's when both parties agree. That's why the presumption of 50-50 in all cases is unworkable. The presumption in family law today, and it's the North Star of family law jurisprudence, is best interest of the child. And that's where it should remain, because it's the child's stability. It's the child's continuity. It's the child's health. It's the child's education. That should be the presumption in family law. And what my amendment does is recognize that, but also requires the court to make it a goal of 50-50 between parents. And I think that's the right thing to do. So I ask you all to support this amendment. Thank you.
Question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the junior senator from the 8th. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The noes appear to have it. The noes do have it. I declare the amendment rejected. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The question now is on passage of the bill. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 463 would change our domestic relations law by amending a number of sections that are in Article 9 of Chapter 48. There's a definitional section that's added in Article 1, which is definitions under the Act. And I want to go through it, Mr. President. This is important legislation. It addresses very important proceedings and litigation and the custody of children. Article 9, by the way, addresses in current law custodial allocation of children. So, in the bill, Mr. President, the page 1 of the bill adds a new section which is designated as section 102A in Article 1. And it creates for the first time, Mr. President, in our law, a presumption in favor of equal 50-50 custodial allocation. And it says, there shall be a presumption, rebuttable by a preponderance of the evidence, that equal 50-50 custodial allocation is in the best interest of the child. And then it goes on to talk about the rebutting of the presumption. That theme, Madam President, weaves its way throughout all the sections that are included in the bill. The bill includes Chapter 48, Article 9, Section 203, proposed temporary parenting plans. And the application of the presumption would apply there. We add some language in these sections. We're changing court procedure a little bit. I should talk about that. But it says, first of all, if the parties come to court and they've agreed on what the allocation of the child should be, basically that's it. You know, the court doesn't have to apply a 50-50 presumption, and unless the court determines for some reason that what the parents of the child have agreed to is not in the child's interest, the court will order that which the parents have agreed to, made as an agreement. The law says that if it's not, if a parent requests a 50-50 allocation of physical custody, the presumption applies. It goes into effect, the court has to consider it, and I'm on page 4 of the bill now, starting with subsection E. What we say in this bill, this is new law, that if temporary allocation of physical custody is not on an equal 50-50 basis, there must be specific findings of fact by the court based upon sworn testimony presented at the hearing as to why, what are the reasons, and it has to be upon evidence. It provides in this, for the first time, subsection F, that if a parent asks for 50-50 custody and is denied, or a parent is given no custody of his child whatsoever, this law creates a right for that parent to take an immediate interlocutory appeal to our newly created West Virginia Intermediate Appellate Court. Normally, Mr. President, in a case you don't get ever to appeal, there are exceptions, but generally you don't ever get to appeal a case until the whole case is over and there's been a final order. There are some limited circumstances where you can appeal a decision of a judge before the case is over, and what we're saying now is this is one. And I think it's fair and reasonable, given that it's an issue of enormous importance. It's the most important decision, the most important thing that happens in the lives of anybody who has children. You know, what becomes of their children, and that can get ordered very early in a case at the very first hearing. A temporary order, normally our existing law would be it's not appealable. Parties have to wait till the whole case is over, file your appeal in. This says nope. You get an immediate, you can petition for an immediate appeal. The law provides that in the establishment of a temporary parenting plan, the presumption will apply. It talks about, there are similar provisions, Section 206 and later, Mr. President, relate to the final hearing. Section 207 relates to, and so I should say, the presumption provided for in this bill applies both at the temporary hearing and the final hearing. Section 207 addresses the allocation of decision-making responsibility for a child. That's a little bit different than physical custody. Physical custody is who has the child and when, what times, what days. Decision-making responsibility is who has the authority to make the significant decisions for this child. It happens, Mr. President, that there are occasions when parents do not agree on important decisions. They could be medical questions. They could be whether the young man is going to get to play football, you know. This is a section in the law, it's current law, that addresses those circumstances and decision-making authority. The guts of this bill, Mr. President, that is, in my opinion, in Section 209. And Section 209 goes with the presumption that we create. We create a presumption in this bill that says it's presumed that the physical custody of the child should be allocated on a 50-50 basis. Section 209 tells us when the presumption may be rebutted. What circumstances exist to rebut the presumption? And we tried to list and include in this as many as we could reasonably. I'm sure that we probably have missed some, but we have to recognize, Mr. President, that there are circumstances where it's impossible to have a 50-50 custodial allocation. You know, mom and child live here in Charleston and dad has moved to Texas. It can't work. It doesn't work. There are many circumstances in which it would be inappropriate for a court to order 50-50. So that's the position, as the senator from the 8th said, from go, but Section 209 tells us a list of circumstances when the presumption can be rebutted and overcome by a preponderance of the evidence. There are some other minor changes in this bill, but that really covers the main points. Mr. President, I would like to reserve the right to close debate on the question, but I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a bill that I don't want to get up and talk about, but I feel the need to. I'm not a lawyer, and with all due respect to my colleagues who are, I have the greatest respect for you, but sometimes I get lost in all the legal discussion. But I have been through family court as a child. Heck, maybe I've been in it more than the senator from the 8th. And I cannot overemphasize how difficult that is. When these very personal and these very deep issues of finances and addiction and custody and children and tragedy, when all these things intermingle together in an official, formal, legal setting, I cannot emphasize how difficult that is on people. My heart goes out to every family who has to endure that, whatever the circumstance is. Now, professionally, since then, as a pastor, I've worked with folks who are going through some of these same scenarios, and it can rip families apart. It can literally rip families apart. Whether you're an adult or you're a child, having to decide these matters of custody when life goes wrong, and that's what most of the circumstances we're talking about involve. When life goes wrong, it can just rip the foundation out from underneath of you. I'm not on judiciary, but I have watched the replay of the testimony there on Friday multiple times, trying to make sure I'm educated about this issue. What's clear to me is that there are no easy answers. Half of all families in America go through something like this. Maybe they don't have to go to this extent, as the senator from Oregon said, depending on the circumstances, depending on what's been prearranged, what's been agreed to. But every single situation is unique. I agree that the goal ought to be 50-50 custody, shared parenting. That's ideal. Unfortunately, when life goes wrong, life isn't ideal. It gets messy. It gets really messy. And like I said before, it makes me uneasy every year we have to deal with this bill, because I know how intensely personal and difficult these situations are. In the end, because I think they are so messy and so difficult, somebody's got to make a determination about what's in the best interest of the child. That's the North Star, best interest of the child. Somebody's got to make that determination, and I don't know who's better to make that determination than the judge. That's why I think we need to keep the current standard, keep the current system. Is it perfect? No, it's not. I've been there. It's not perfect. But I don't know what's better. I think we need to keep the current standard in place, best interest of the child as the top standard, rather than adopt a new standard of 50-50. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? Senator from Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've supported this bill the last couple of years, and I rise and support it today. But since last year, things has kind of changed, because you could say I got too much emotionally involved in this bill, that I try not to do that. But the past year I've met with, I'm not going to say hundreds, but I mean lots and lots of people. I was contacted by a grassroots group that has really pushed this year. And one thing I noticed that, everyone, before I kind of looked at it, this was just a man thing. The man was the one that was always being the victim on it, because that was the only ones that was reaching out to me at that time. But after this past year, I've met with several of these people that the only sin that they've really committed is they love their children so much. I've had them in my office break down and cry. I've sat at a restaurant with some of them. They break down and cry because they can't see their children. And Mr. President, times has changed. At one time in our society, the man was most of the time the breadwinner, The woman stayed at home. But times has changed. In a lot of these instances, the woman is the breadwinner now. I mean, she's the one. And they're being punished because they're a productive member of society, both sides. And what all these had in common was, like I said, they loved their children. And I'm telling you, and I'm being honest, not one time was money brought up for like child support, wanting to change child support, wanting more money or not wanting to pay any more money. Every time all that was brought up was, I just want to see my children more. I just want to, and a lot of times it, wasn't even 50-50. They would like, the one gentleman had, I think, 20% of the time, and he said, if I can get 40% of the time, I understand that. And it's not about money. But it just tugged at my heart because these people love their children so much. And I put myself in their place if I would have had to go this. And I thank God every day I've never had to be through this process. And I can't imagine someone saying, you can't see your kids. In a perfect world, we go 50-50. And another thing that kept echoing every time was how much money these people have to spend in the court system trying to be treated fairly. And I'm talking tens of thousands of dollars that some of these people have spent just trying to get to see their children more. And then I started, other people as reaching out to me that was like the senator from Greenbrier that was a victim of the court system. And some of them, one parent or the other got custody of them and, wouldn't let the other parent see them. And then guess what? They grew up and they don't even have a relationship with the other parent now because they said they was lied to the whole time that they was growing up. It's a sad situation, and I wish we could fix it. I wish we could come up with something that would just take care of the problem, because it is a huge problem and it's worse. And we could all sit here and talk about, the bad on both sides. Some of these children should not be with one parent or the other. And that's where we have to rely on the judges to make the right decision. And this bill here still allows the judge to do that in these circumstances. All it does is just say, we're going to start out at 50-50. If one parent is good, the other parent is good, then it should be 50-50, start out at 50-50. If the one parent's abusive or is a drug addict or whatever, they're not going to get these kids. The judge is going to rule against that. But our judicial system is based on being fair and equal. And all this says is we're going to start this system out at that point and then go from there. And again, like I said, I got too emotionally wrapped up in this bill because I'm very passionate about it this year, and it's because of the many people. I mean, to be honest with you, it's been a few hundred people that has reached out to me that has been affected by this, and I just want to do something to help these people. If they're willing to want to be in their children's life and they're a good, responsible adult and they want to be a parent, then I think they ought to have that opportunity. They ought to have an avenue to go through to get that opportunity. So, is it going to fail sometimes? I'm sure it will. Our whole system fails at one time or the other. But is it going to help some people out that stop them being victims, whether they're the children involved or the parents involved? Yes, it's going to do some good. It's not a perfect bill. It's not a perfect system. It never will. We don't live in a perfect world. But, Mr. President, I am very passionate about this, that we try to do what's best for these children. Because, you know, all of us can sit here and tell horror story after horror story both ways, how, you know, parents abused the children when they shouldn't have had them to start with, and then others where, you know, the other parent should have had. So I just think we still have the safety checks in place. You know, the judge is still going to be able to, you know, try to have the authority to weed out the bad from the good, but it also gives these people that's going into the system the hope that they are going to start out on an even playing field. So with that being said, Mr. President, I urge a yes vote on this bill. Thank you.
So further discussion before I recognize the Senator from Morgan to close debate. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It comes as no surprise to anybody in this chamber that, you know, I have come reluctantly to where I am at this moment. I think some people in this chamber have been happy, and some have been disappointed in me over the last couple of years that I have been involved in preventing similar legislation from reaching the finishing line on the floor of the Senate. I want to talk a little bit about that and you know, why I am willing to take a step this year that I had not previously been willing to do. First of all, Mr. President, you may know, but maybe the others don't. I've been practicing domestic relations law, family law, divorce law for 37 years. I've had dozens of cases in many years, hundreds over the last 37 continuous years, starting at the time when circuit judges themselves decided the divorce cases. You know, divorce hearings were before the circuit court, sometimes with a court-appointed commissioner. In the late 80s, we developed a family law master system that ran, and they heard the cases that were ultimately decided by circuit judges. That ran from the late 80s to 2000. For the last 20-some years, we've had a family court system after the voters ratified an amendment to the Constitution to permit one, a family court. I've seen more domestic relations cases, I'm confident, than everyone in this chamber. That said, what the junior senator from the 8th and the minority leader both said is absolutely true. The one thing, the one constant that you can say about every divorce case, every child custody case, every domestic relations case is this: it is unique. There is no other case that is exactly like it. Each case has its own specific facts and circumstances. And Mr. President, I'll include within that cases where the same people have got divorced more than once. I've had that case a few times as well. They divorce, marry, divorce again. The second time around, it's still a different case. For a long time, and you know, I worry whether a presumption of any kind works in such an area of law, and had held the position that we should not, because while there are many cases where 50-50 allocation of physical custody is the right result, there are many, many cases where it is not. And the polar star should always be, and it remains within this bill, Mr. President, what's best for the child or children. Now, we make a presumption that, and let me back up and say, we put in the law last year, the year before, a presumption that shared parenting is best for the children. I think we can all agree on that. I hope we can, that in normal situations, a child has a much higher chance of success in life academics, employment, everything, if he or she has two loving parents who care about him or her 24/7. And that's true whether they're married to one another or not. You know, I have my own opinions about, I do think, if we're going to be honest about this conversation, it's better for children, virtually always, not always, but most of the time, when their parents stay married. Their parents are married to one another. Children want their parents to be together, to be married, to love one another. There are exceptions. Polar star has to be what's best for the children. I'm okay with this bill, Mr. President, which says we're going to start with a presumption that shared allocation of physical custody, equal allocation of physical custody, is best for the children as long as this bill does what it does, which is provide and preserve to the court broad flexibility in determining, not in this case, reasons delineated in Section 209. This bill preserves to the court the right to say, yes, the legislature has created presumption, I recognize it, but based upon the evidence I've heard, that is not what is best for the child in this case. And so I've moved a step from where I was last year or the year before. I'm willing to support a bill, this bill, that creates a presumption with full knowledge and understanding that our family court judges in the state are going to continue to do what they do every day around the state of West Virginia, which is try to find the answer to that question in every case. What will serve this child or these children the best? I will sleep well at night. I don't think we've done anything in this legislation that will endanger children. I think in some ways we're going to get parents who feel like they're not getting a fair shake in the family court system an opportunity to have a quicker review of the decision by the family court than they've ever had. And I feel as if we've done a good job in this bill, Mr. President, of focusing or trying to focus the attention of the family court judges around the state on those specific circumstances that might suggest, we shouldn't go with the 50-50 allocation of physical custody. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare them. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will prepare or close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 25 yeas, 9 nays, 0 absent not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 489, clarifying amount of deputy sheriff annual salary increase.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill lie over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 622, establishing requirements for carbon dioxide sequestration. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Tucker. No? Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Engrossed Senate Bill 640, eliminating requirement of PSC to send certain recommended decisions by certified mail. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on pass the bill. Senior Senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 640 is an agency bill that amends a single section of code. It eliminates the requirement that the PSC serve recommended orders on parties by certified mail, return receipt requested in proceedings where a hearing has been held and the parties have already appeared in the proceeding. Service may instead be made by regular mail. The bill retains current provisions allowing service of recommended orders by email. Senate Bill 640 only applies to recommended orders in contested proceedings. It does not apply to circumstances where the PSC might send out a notice or other document to individuals who are not expecting it. The PSC expects a cost savings from the charge. I will take, from the change, I'm sorry. I will take questions, otherwise I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, and not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 660, setting forth standard of care requirements for telehealth practice.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill be referred to the Committee on Rules.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 588, relating to West Virginia Rails to Trails program. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Bill will be engrossed in advance to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 616, relating to confidentiality of court files and law enforcement records of certain enumerated offenses. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be engrossed in advance to third reading.
Engrossed Joint Resolution 102, clarifying that policymaking and rulemaking authority of the State Board of Education is subject to legislative review, approval, amendment, or rejection. Second reading of the resolution.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the resolution move to third with right to amend.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Bills on first reading. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that all bills on first reading be considered read a first time and advanced to second read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Introduction of guest. Remarks by members. Junior Senator from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I raise the issue of Resolution 10, which has to do with amending our Constitution so it would read, this is Section 3, Part 1, which is our Bill of Rights, that men and women are equal before the law. Our West Virginia Supreme Court has already decided that. All I'm asking is that our Constitution also reflects that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, you know, there is a shadow really hanging over the world. The other night, I was watching TV, and the movie Saving Private Ryan was on. How many people have seen that? Yes. And it showed, you know, we talk about the greatest generation, and watching that film put you there. You know, the film was filmed in a specific way of actually put people right in the action. And it was all these horrors that these men endured. You know, I feel like these people of the greatest generation sacrificed a great deal, hundreds of thousands of Americans, to overturn a evil human being by the name of Adolf Hitler. And now we're facing another person who's following the same playbook that Adolf Hitler followed, almost to the letter. What bothers me, this greatest generation, some of these people will be turning over in their graves because we do have people in this country siding with Mr. Putin. We have an ex-president goes down there and praises Mr. Putin. I know many of my fellow senators voted for this ex-president, whose name I won't mention, but I think it's time that you begin to reevaluate this individual. You know, how can any American at this time stand against this nation? This is a world war. This war involves us all. We have, our markets have begun to tank. We're vulnerable to cyber attacks. We will feel the impact of what's going on over in the Ukraine. This is not a war about killing people. It's a war about destroying economies. We are the most powerful nation in the world. The Soviet Union or Russia's economy is about 1/10 of our economy. They are a third world country with nuclear weapons. They have nothing there. We could crush them militarily if we so desired. But I've always heard that strength comes from when you're powerful, you're stronger when you're not always using your strength to get your way. So I just hope that we begin to reevaluate our position as a nation. And I do believe, I heard someone say that January 6th, what happened then, gave Mr. Putin the idea that this country is so divided that he can get away with things. We have to get back to we the people again, especially in a time of war, because we're all going to be impacted by what's going on over there. So, again, you know, we must take a real deep look at ourselves and talk to your fellow friends and relatives and try to make them understand that they will be impacted by this war also. I thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Wood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make the observation that Putin didn't invade Ukraine under the presidency of President Trump. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I'd like to ask unanimous consent that the remarks of the senator from Ohio and the senator from Berkeley be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Senator from Harrison.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to add my thoughts, not on the latest political debate, but on what my friend from Berkeley got up and said. You know, last year I asked for a resolution encouraging Congress to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. It's kind of a nothing, but we didn't take it up. But I really don't understand the hesitation of my colleagues to make sure that women are explicitly mentioned in our Constitution. I think that's important. I don't know why it doesn't seem to be important or why it stokes fear among us, because women aren't mentioned. When their constitutions were written, women were almost indentured servants. They couldn't own property. They couldn't vote. Couldn't serve on a grand jury. You know, I read in the paper, I love reading the old history things where the first woman doctor, you know, that was admitted to the university was in the 20th century. Even though there were great healers that were women that were war heroes, women that sacrificed their lives for our country. You know, to not be able to vote in this country until the early 20th century is shocking to me. Shocking, just because you're a woman. All that we're seeking to do, and all that her resolution seeks to do, is to put women in the Constitution. The United States Supreme Court has recognized that women are equal to men in the eyes of the law. Why don't we? What's our hesitation? Are we worried about some abortion bill or some new finding? Well, that's already been decided. You're not going to lose any foothold or any argument when those bills come up and get passed. I mean, it is what it is. The Supreme Court has already ruled. Our Supreme Court's ruled. Let's get this done. Let's make our Constitution fair, equal for all citizens. We get up here and we say it and we wear it on our sleeves. Let's actually do something about it. Let's put women in the Constitution, Mr. President. I urge that resolution be put on an agenda and be put forth for a vote. Thank you.
Senator from Marion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that the remarks by my friend from Harrison be printed in the appendix of the Journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Senator from Pleasants.
Unanimous consent to return to introductions.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Pleasants.
We have a couple visitors from Worth County, I think in the President's Gallery behind me. County Commissioner Nikki Garrett, would she please stand? And John Griffith, would both of them please stand and be recognized? Thank you.
Is there further introductions? If not, remarks by members. Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that remarks made by my friend from Wood County be put in the appendix to the Journal, please.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Senior Senator from the 6th.
On a lighter note, tomorrow is Trails Day in the Capitol, and there will be adventure travel organizations from across the nation set up out there with information booths, as well as individuals from the state who advocate for it. There will be the Department of Agriculture set up, as well as waterway travel. I've left a brochure on everyone's desk outlining the next 3 days starting tomorrow about an adventure travel extravaganza plan for tomorrow here in the Capitol, on the Capitol grounds on Saturday, wrapping up Sunday morning. I'll tell everyone a little bit more about the details, but in the morning, make sure you get out the rotunda and check out the displays. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are there further remarks? Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to make the body aware that today in the legislature that over at the Department of Arts, Culture, and History, one of our members was awarded the West Virginia History Advocate Legislative Leadership Award for their continued support and programs to encourage interest in West Virginia's history. If the body wouldn't mind giving a congratulations to our Senate President, Craig Blair.
Senator from Harrison for a second time.
Yes, thank you. I hope I'm not out of line, but since we're acknowledging some awards, my friend and chairman of the judiciary received an award in front of me earlier this week. He received an award from the Sheriff's Association for all of his fine work in the legislature as a senator and the bills that protect our law enforcement and help make their jobs a little easier. I think he deserves a nice round of applause, Mr. Chairman.
Further remarks before I recognize the senator from Randolph to close remarks. Senator from Randolph.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I did actually want to point out, because I heard somebody say that the President Trump supported Putin, and this is just a quote from him today. It says, "This is something that should have never happened," talking about the invasion. "This would not have happened during my administration. In fact, some people are saying, why didn't this take place over the past 4 years during my administration? And it didn't happen for a very good reason." So I don't think Mr. Trump, in fact, or President Trump did support what is happening in Ukraine, but I will tell you what President Trump would have supported. Because he supported tax cuts on the personal income tax at the federal level, and I have no doubt if he were in this body, President Trump would also be supporting House Bill 4007, Mr. President. If we could get that out of here to the governor's desk, I'm sure he would appreciate it, even though he lives in a different state. He would just be with us in spirit. Thank you, Mr. President.
The chair was concerned there for a minute how you were going to get to this. Further remarks. Miscellaneous business, Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Subject to announcements, I move the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m., and I have one announcement.
Proceed.
Your Rules Committee will meet immediately following the cessation of the floor session in the Senate President's Conference Room.
Further announcements, Senior Senator from the 4th.
Mr. President, your Committee on Finance will meet today at 3:30 in room 451M.
Senator from Jefferson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Education Committee will meet in 208 West at 2:30 p.m. If we need to, we will reconvene after Finance and Judiciary to complete our agenda.
Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on the Judiciary will meet today at 3:30 p.m. in room 208 West Wing.
Senior Senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Government Organization will be meeting today at 2:30 p.m. in room 208 West. The agenda has been posted.
Senator from Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Health will meet at 1:30 today in 451M. And if needed, we will meet tomorrow at 9 a.m. in the same room, 451M.
Senator from Tucker.
Mr. President, your Committee on Energy will meet at 1:30 today in 208 East or West, and the agenda has been posted.
Further announcements, Senator from Brooke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to announce the meetings for tomorrow, if I could have the body's attention briefly. Your Committee on Health, Mr. President, will meet tomorrow at 9 a.m. in room 451M. Your Committee on Banking and Insurance will meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. in room 451 a.m. Following 15 minutes following the floor session tomorrow, your Committee on Education will be meeting in room 451M, and 15 minutes following the Education Committee, the Judiciary Committee will meet in room 208 West. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further announcements, Senior Senator from the 17th.
Mr. President, I would also like to announce to the Senate body that some work because of our Senate Pro Tem and some conversations between myself and the Minority Leader that we believe we've got the work schedule worked out, so we will not need to meet on Saturday.
Senator from Marion would like to put the remarks in the Journal.
You read my mind, Mr. President. I want that in writing, but thank you. Just like to announce the AFL-CIO Labor Caucus is immediately upon adjournment in room 330 West. Thank you, Mr. President.
And what are they having for lunch?
I'm not sure, but I'll check the menu for you. Come join us.
Further announcements, Senator from Wood.
Just like to acknowledge the great negotiating skills of the senior senator from the 3rd District. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further announcements. If not, question for stand adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.
House will please be in order. Those persons not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber. All members and guests in the galleries will please rise as we are led in prayer today by the gentleman of the 42nd, Doug Honig.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, for your love, your mercy, and your blessings. We thank you for the Spirit of God that abounds in this place, and we just pray that that same Spirit would lead, guide, and direct us in our decisions, in our civility, in our professionalism, in our common goal to serve our communities in West Virginia and ultimately this great nation. And Father, even as we mention our nation, we pray for our nation. We pray for the American people from coast to coast. God, we know that we live in an unstable world and we need your presence now more than ever. We pray for peace around this planet, God, and we just pray that you would instill in us your Spirit that will, Father, allow us to lead, but ultimately, as the Bible tells us, the greatest among us will be those that serve. And Father, help us to have a servant's heart today. And we just ask all of this as we pray in the name of Jesus Christ. And everyone said, Amen.
All members and guests, please remain standing. We'll be led in the Pledge of Allegiance today by the gentleman of the 67th, Doug Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the members and our guests in the gallery join me as we pledge our fealty to our flag and country? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All members and guests may be seated. Reading the Journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022.
Journal 28th, Delegate Maynor.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read.
Are there objections? No objections are heard. Lady from the 49th for a calendar update.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On special calendar, second reading, committee substitute for Senate Bill 25 was moved to House calendar. And on House calendar, third reading, committee substitute for House Bill 4105 was transferred to the special calendar, and on House calendar second reading, House Bill 4331 was transferred to special calendar.
Introductions. Lady in the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. West Virginia history heroes are nominated by historical, genealogical, preservation, museum, patriotic, or like organizations from across the state. The purpose of this annual award is to give state-level recognition to individuals for dedicated service on behalf of an organization's programs or for a recent significant contribution to state and local history. This morning, individuals were recognized by the West Virginia History Heroes for 2022, and they are with us in the gallery and on the floor. If they would stand and the House make them feel welcome.
Gentleman 39th, Delegate Farrell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before session today, I had the privilege to meet a group of men outside the chamber here, and they're the kind of guys that we talk about building infrastructure in here and things. These are the guys that maintain and take care of it. The kind of guys that are hanging off the sides of bridges in inclement weather and all kinds of conditions. Joining us in the South Gallery are the Painters District Council 53. If you give them a warm welcome.
Gentleman 17th, Delegate Rohrbach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And with me today, I have several history heroes from my area that I'd like to introduce. If any of them are in the gallery, please stand. James Hale, Barry Hofstetler, Kelly Johnson, Donna Gale Stevens, and Amanda Huff. If any of them are there, if they'd stand in the House, give them a warm welcome.
Lady in the 4th, Delegate Zukoff.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to have with me today these young ladies that are in front of me, if they'd please stand. Alina Holliday and Sarah McBee from Moundsville Middle School paging with us today, and they are joined by teacher Dan Gatz and Mr. John Holliday in the gallery. Please join me in welcoming them.
Lady from the 41st, Delegate Tully.
Good morning, friends, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the West Virginia House of Delegates, we have a page today. Alison Potaker from Western Greenbrier Middle School. I'd also like to introduce her on behalf of myself as well as Delegate Hannah. So if we could make her feel welcome. She is escorted by her mother, Kimberly, in the gallery.
Gentleman 58th, Delegate Miller.
Mr. Speaker, Delegate Reed, myself, we have Malachi Michael and his parents, Beth and Alan Michael, from Great Cacapen in our home county of Morgan County. Please give them a warm welcome.
The gentleman 19th, Delegate Booth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we have a couple of fine Wayne County kids from Wayne High School. If they would stand, Bryson Edwards and Jacob Thompson. Jacob's parents, Eric and Lisa Thompson, brought them today. They're in the West Gallery. If the House will make them feel welcome.
Lady from the 35th, Delegate Young.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am excited to introduce a page today. Will Snidow is from Lighthouse of Learning, and we're happy to have him. If everyone could make him feel welcome.
The gentleman to 47th, Delegate Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am pleased to introduce a page we have with us today from the heart of West Virginia in Barber County, Taylor Phillips from Philip Barber High School. She's my shooting partner, a calf whisperer extraordinaire, a lady of the Golden Horseshoe, and my niece. And she's escorted today by her dad in the North Gallery, Chad Phillips, my brother that many of you have probably met from his time working on equal parenting here. Please give him a warm house welcome.
The gentleman to 7th, Delegate Barnhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Joining us today in the South Gallery, we have a constituent of mine from Ritchie County, Mr. Matt Freeland. I'd ask that he please stand and the House make him feel welcome, please.
Lady in the 51st, Delegate Walker.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a special guest in the South Gallery. She is a Bluefield resident, our future West Virginia organizer, a Howard University law student, an advocate for the Crown Act, House Bill 4741. Shakira Irving, can you please take a stand in the House? Please make her welcome.
Gentleman 10th, Delegate Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've got a couple of announcements this morning. First of all, on behalf of the Wood County delegation, I'd like to recognize Wood County's history heroes today. Jeff and Christy Little from Parkersburg, if you'd stand, please, and the House make you feel welcome. And also in the gallery today, we have members of Labor Union Laborers Local 1085, Matt Freeland, Ricky Atkinson, Donovan Murray, and Don Larkin. If they would also please stand. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and make our Wood County residents feel welcome. Thank you.
Are there further introductions? Standing committee reports.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 4616, remove sales tax on gun safes and certain firearm safety devices, and reports a committee substitute back therefore with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
That report will be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration House Bill 2838, authorize the ordering of restitution to the state for reimbursement of costs incurred for misuse of public funds and to create the State Auditor's Public Integrity and Fraud Fund for use of said funds. House Bill 4466 relating to School Building Authority's review of school bond applications. And House Bill 4692 to revise the West Virginia Tax Increment Financing Act and reports back committee substitutes therefore with recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
That report will be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 4285 relating to real estate appraiser licensing board requirements and reports a committee substitute back therefore with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass and with the recommendation that second reference to the Committee on the Judiciary be dispensed with.
That report will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The two chairs have conferred on this matter, and I now ask unanimous consent that the second reference of the bill to the Committee on the Judiciary be dispensed with.
Lady in the 49th, ask unanimous consent that the second reference for House Bill 4285 to the Committee on the Judiciary be dispensed with. Are there objections? Okay, no objections are heard. The second reference to the Committee on Judiciary will be dispensed with. Next committee report.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 4064 allowing antique car license plates for cars over 10,000 pounds, House Bill 4642 relating to pecuniary interest of county and district officers, teachers, and school officials in contracts, and House Bill 4647 relating to the Board of Funeral Service Examiners, and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass.
That report will be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 4608 to require the State Fire Commission to propose minimum standards for persons to be certified as probationary status volunteer firefighters, and reports by the committee substitute, therefore, with recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
That report will be received.
Originating in the Committee on Education and reported with the recommendation that it do pass is House Bill 4829, modifying definitions of certain school cafeteria personnel.
That report will be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 2733, relating to the establishment of a Combat Action Badge and Combat Action Ribbon special registration plates. House Bill 4441, creating a Class M air rifle stamp. House Bill 4570, to allow veterinary telehealth in West Virginia with out-of-state providers. And House Bill 4794, requiring counties provide fiscal information for state auditors' West Virginia checkbook website, and reports by committee substitutes, therefore, with recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
That report will be received.
Your Committee on Education has had under consideration House Concurrent Resolution 68, requesting that a formal feasibility study be conducted on the viability of establishing an accredited School of Veterinary Medicine in West Virginia, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it be adopted, but that it first be referred to the Committee on Rules.
That report will be received, and that resolution will be referred to the Committee on Rules.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4071, mask and quarantine option for parents and faculty, and House Bill 4560, relating generally to motor vehicle dealers, distributors, wholesalers, and manufacturers, and reports by committee substitutes, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
That report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4778, permit banks to transact business with any one or more fiduciaries on multiple fiduciary accounts, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass.
That report will be received.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4012, prohibiting the showing of proof of a COVID-19 vaccination. House Bill 4377, to update the involuntary commitment process. House Bill 4499, relating to making the procurement process more efficient and modifying and updating outdated processes and requirements. House Bill 4511, to make numerous amendments to modernize and increase efficiencies in the administration of the West Virginia Unclaimed Property Act. Committee substitute for, and House Bill 4600, making it a felony for a person in a position of trust to assault, batter, or verbally abuse a child or neglect to report abuse they witness, and reports the same back with the recommendation, and reports by committee substitutes, therefore, with recommendation that the committee substitutes each do pass.
That report will be received.
Your Joint Committee on Enrolled Bills has examined, found truly enrolled, and on the 23rd day of February 2022 presented to His Excellency the Governor for his action the following bills signed by the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Delegates. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 445.
That report will be received. Are there further standing committee reports, select committee reports, executive messages?
Communications from His Excellency the Governor advised that on February 23, 2022, he approved House Bill 4024, committee substitute for House Bill 4067, committee substitute for House Bill 4276, and House Bill 4264.
That report will be received. Are there further executive messages? If not, Senate messages.
The Clerk of the Senate announces that the Senate has passed with amendment and a title amendment House Bill 3303, relating to clarifying the process of filling vacancies on ballots.
That message will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of House Bill 3303 is to add clarity to the ballot appointment process and clearly reiterate that there is no appointment to certain ballot vacancies after the primary election occurs. The Senate amendment provides clarity in instances of appointment where a delegate district or a senatorial district lies entirely within a single county. The Senate also makes the statute retroactive to January 30 of this year. These are not objectionable, but do not accomplish the purpose of the House bill in providing clarity that there is no appointment to certain ballot vacancies after the primary election occurs. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move the House concur with further amendment.
The question before the House is the motion by the lady from the 49th that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House Bill 3303 with further amendment and further title amendment. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, those in favor of the motion that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House Bill 3303 with further amendment and further title amendment will please say aye. Aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares that motion adopted. The question now before the House is the passage of the bill as amended. Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 100 ayes, 0 nays, and 0 absent. Majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 3303 relating to clarifying the process of filling vacancies on ballots.
Are there additional title amendments? If not, the title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Chair will note that the Senate did make this bill effective from passage. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the bill take effect from passage.
The question now is on the motion that House Bill 3303 be made effective from passage. Those in favor of the lady's motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 100 ayes, 0 nays, and 0 absent. 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next Senate message.
The clerk of the Senate announces that the Senate has passed with amendment and title amendment House Bill 4299 to prohibit the intentional interference with election processes and creating associated criminal penalties.
The message will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to add language providing that no person may obstruct or interfere with a voter with the intention to delay, hinder, interrupt, harass, or intimidate a voter traveling to or from the polls. The Senate amendment removes a duplicative provision clarifying that exit polling is not included. This does not harm the bill. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move we concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment.
The question before the House is the motion by the lady from the 49th that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment to House Bill 4299. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, those in favor of adoption of the motion will please say aye. Aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the motion adopted. The question now before the House is the passage of the bill. Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will please vote aye. Those opposed will please vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 99 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 member absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4299 to prohibit the intentional interference with election processes and creating associated criminal penalties.
Are there further title amendments? If not, the title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next Senate message.
Clerk of the Senate announces that the Senate has passed with amendment and title amendment House Bill 4312, extending the option of electronic absentee ballot transmission to first responders in certain emergency circumstances.
That message should be received. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this bill is to allow first responders to vote by electronic absentee ballot in certain emergency circumstances. The Senate amendment provides additional clarity in instances of an absentee ballot request and improves the title. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I move we concur in the Senate amendment and Senate title amendment.
The question before the House is the motion that the House concur in the Senate amendment and title amendment on House Bill 4312. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, those in favor of the motion will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the motion adopted. Then now the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 99 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 member absent. Majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4312, extending the option of electronic absentee ballot transmission to first responders in certain emergency circumstances.
Are there further title amendments? If not, the title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next Senate message.
The Clerk of the Senate announces that the Senate has passed the following bills. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 470 relating generally to health care decisions.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 553 relating to powers of West Virginia Health Care Authority.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Health.
Senate Bill 556, removing outdated reference to federal officers' peacekeeping authority.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 586, relating to athletic eligibility of transfer students.
The message will be received and that bill will be referred to the Committee on Education.
Senate Bill 619, relating to rulemaking for unidentified and unclaimed remains in possession of the Chief Medical Examiner.
The message will be received and that bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Senate Bill 628, supplementing and amending appropriations to Department of Commerce DNR.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Senate Bill 629, supplementing and amending appropriations to Department of Education, West Virginia Board of Education Vocational Division.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Senate Bill 630, supplementing and amending appropriations to Higher Education Policy Commission Administration Control Account.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Senate Bill 633, supplementing and amending appropriations to DHHR Consolidated Medical Services Fund.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Senate Bill 636, supplementing and amending appropriations to Department of Revenue Office of Tax Appeals.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Senate Bill 637, supplementing and amending appropriations to Executive, Governor's Office, Civil Contingent Fund.
The message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Senate Bill 639, provide 45-day waiting period on rate increases when water and sewer services are purchased from municipality.
That message will be received. Lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill, Senate Bill 639, is the same bill as House Bill 4691 that we've already taken up. So I ask unanimous consent that the bill be taken up for immediate consideration, dispensed with the committee reference, and read a first time.
Lady in the 49th, ask unanimous consent that Senate Bill 639 be taken up for immediate consideration, that its committee references be dispensed with, and that it be read a first time. Are there objections? No objections are heard. The clerk will please read Senate Bill 639 a first time.
Senate Bill 639, providing 45-day waiting period on rate increases when water and sewer services are purchased from municipality.
The bill will be advanced to second reading. Next Senate message.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 643, removing residency requirement of members appointed to County Airport Authority.
The message will be received and that bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 650, eliminating number of royalty owners required for utilization by operator for lawful use and development by co-tenants.
The message will be received and that bill will be referred to the Committee on Energy.
Senate Bill 651, allowing County Board of Education participating in operation of multi-county vocational center to withdraw.
The message will be received and that bill will be referred to the Committee on Education.
Senate Bill 685, relating to West Virginia Real Estate License Act.
The message will be received and that bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization. Are there further Senate messages? If not, resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution 90, U.S. Army Private Robert Bob Mullins Sr. Memorial Bridge.
The resolution will be referred to the Committee on Rules. Are there further resolutions? If not, petitions, motions, bills introduced, unfinished business.
House Resolution 15, amend House Rules 94 and 94B to allow unlimited joint sponsors of bills as well as unrestricted adding and deleting of joint sponsors of bills and resolutions.
The question now before the House is on the resolution. The resolution was reported to the House from the Committee on Rules with a recommendation that the resolution be rejected. The question is on the resolution. There are amendments to the resolution. Clerk will please report the first amendment to the resolution.
Delegate Forrest moves to amend the resolution on page 1, line 1, by striking out the word unrestricted and inserting in lieu thereof the word electronic. On page 1, lines 11 and 15, by striking out the words via the delegate console. On page 1, line 16, at the end, add the phrase, if the lead sponsor of the bill agrees electronically, and on page 1, line 20, by striking out the words delegate console and inserting the words House automated systems.
Okay, the question before the House now is the amendment as just read by the clerk. Is there debate on the amendment? Okay, if not, those in favor of the amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. Okay, the noes appear to have it. Okay, the noes have it. That amendment is lost. Are there further amendments?
Delegate Fluharty moves to amend the resolution on line 5 following the resolve clause by striking out the remainder of the resolution and inserting in lieu thereof the following. That House rules...
Does the gentleman from the third wish to explain the amendment?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Are there objections? No objections are heard. The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a crazy idea. That just maybe this place should be a place of ideas, and the bills should follow those ideas, and not necessarily someone's name or party affiliation, which is what we have now. We've seen the games played throughout the years. I've been here long enough to see them played. You take bills, somebody sponsors it. If they're from a different party, maybe you introduce another bill that's basically the same bill, but you put somebody else's name on it. Or you originate a bill in committee. You do all these things, all these shenanigans. I think maybe, just maybe, this place should be based on the ideas that are brought forth from our constituents, ideally, and not political parties or the names that are attached to them. So what my amendment does is scraps the names. The ideas shall be put forth. We don't need the names attached to them. How about the ideas? That's all we need. Other states do this, notably the Texas Senate has a similar practice. And I know you guys love Texas. So I think we should adopt this. I'll reserve the right to close and ask the yeas and nays, Mr. Speaker.
The question is on the amendment just explained by the gentleman from the third. Is there debate on the amendment? The gentleman from the first, Doug McGinn, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support the gentleman's amendment. You know, sometimes in here it's difficult, even for some of us that are trained to try to think this way, to make distinctions between personalities and the ideas associated with them, especially when we're looking at bills. This place gets heated. Sometimes we can lose rational control of the passions, and this is one positive step, I think, to take to force us to focus in and hone in on the ideas presented in front of us, rather than the temptation to associate what could be a good idea with a person that you may or may have good or bad feelings towards. So that being said, I support the gentleman's amendment.
The gentleman 66, Douglas Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield? Thank you. This proposed rule it's an amendment to the gentleman from the 60th proposal. When would this take effect?
It plugs in what he has in there, and I believe it was 2023. I'd have to go back to, it says the beginning of the 2023 session. It's not in the actual amendment, but the language of the resolution states that. It's not in the actual amendments in the resolution.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to urge rejection of the Jones Amendment. I think it's a little odd that the 85th legislature will be attempting to enact rules that are going to apply to the 86th legislature. To my knowledge, I don't believe we've done that before. Typically, at the beginning of a legislative session, once a new legislature is seated, they adopt their rules. And of course, they can amend them throughout their term, during that session. But for us, for this body, many of us who will not be here next session, by choice or otherwise, for us to impose rules on the next legislature, I think is presumptuous. So I would urge rejection of the gentleman's amendment. Thank you.
Lady from 35th, Doug Young's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We make rules for the next legislature all the time. Recently, a few legislatures ago, you made rules to increase campaign donations. I don't see how this is any different. We make rules for the people coming next to us. Just last week, one of my bills was originated in a committee that I'm not on. I'm not on the bill anymore. I'm glad the idea is going through. I don't really care because I don't care about the recognition. It doesn't matter. I want good ideas. This is a good amendment. This isn't about us. This is about ideas. Thank you.
Is there debate on the amendment? Lady from the 3rd, Douglas Storch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield? We have never done this. So speak to me as to what what this will look like as far as the reintroduction of a bill that has, so we have a bill that's introduced. If it were to become applicable currently, you're saying our next legislative session, if that sponsor has been reelected and is still in the body, that bill would roll over and would be a newly introduced bill?
A member would still direct the introduction of the bill, but the bill itself, when it comes to the floor, would not reveal a member's name. It would not have a list of co-sponsors. It would not have, as we do now, there's a limited number of co-sponsors. This resolution would essentially open the floodgates for all 100 members potentially to be on a bill, which who knows what that would look like. This would isolate it down. A member like yourself or whomever may be here after the next election would direct the introduction of the bill, but the bill itself would not come down with a list of sponsors as it does now.
For all bills or for just rollovers?
For our House bills.
Okay.
We can't dictate the Senate, obviously.
Thank you.
The gentleman 13th, Douglas Penson's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman continue to yield? Thank you, sir. Would you agree that there is value to knowing who introduced the idea, as you call it?
Why? For your reelection?
No, I'm asking you a question.
No,
you
I don't
agree.
No.
You don't agree that there's any value in that?
I don't know why a person's name or their party affiliation has any value to the words that are within a bill.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Speaker, as I read his amendment, I see that there's a discrepancy in what he's saying and how the amendment reads. The amendment reads under Rule 94 that any bill sponsored by the governor shall be introduced, quote, at the request of the executive. Goes on to say any bill introduced at the request of a constituent shall be, quote, by the request of a constituent. So we are, in fact, indicating who is introducing bills. It goes on to say at the request of a state agency. I certainly can appreciate what he's after, but I think that his amendment is not well thought out and certainly should be revisited. Thank you.
Gentleman 16th, Douglas Linville.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman may state the point.
According to House Rule 105, it states that bills will, on engrossment and after third reading, shall be jacketed and engrossed with their number, title, and by whom introduced. Would this create a conflict in the rules of the House and therefore be out of order?
The chair did not consult that rule when looking at the amendment prior to this consideration today. Based on what the gentleman just read, it sounds as if it would and would require a conforming amendment before the next session came in to convene next year. It does sound like the gentleman's point would be well taken at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So the question now again is still on the amendment. Is there further discussion on the amendment? If not, the gentleman from the third did reserve the right to close debate on the amendment, so the chair recognizes the gentleman from the third.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as a gentlelady from the 35th pointed out, the shenanigans that kind of goes on down here in our process, trying to remove that, trying to let the best ideas go forward, not just the current situation we have now, which is one in which obviously the supermajority has a lot of power, and your ideas get put to the top and the names that go with it, right? That's how it works. But if we remove the names and just go with the ideas, if you ask the people of West Virginia about our policy making in the process, do you think they really care whose name is on a bill? No. They want the best ideas for them. But yet we care whose name is on the bill. We care in our process. We're supposed to be the voice of the people, the people's house, we frequently call this place. But is it really? Is it really, if this is the process we're following, or we allow these things to take place? So it's a policy question for us. Do we want to continue on and have the ability to have names tied to these ideas, and it either gets the idea forward or it stops it in its tracks based upon whose name may be on a piece of legislation, or are we simply just going to do the people's work and do it in a manner that allows the best ideas to go forward, not just somebody's name attached to a certain idea? So with that, I would urge support and ask for yeas and nays, Mr. Speaker.
A roll call vote on this amendment is demanded. Is the demand sustained? The demand is sustained. The question is, shall the amendment be adopted? Those in favor of adoption of this amendment will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Okay, has every member voted? So the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 25 ayes, 75 nays, 0 members absent. Less than a majority in the affirmative. Chair declares that amendment lost. Are there further amendments? Are there further amendments? If not, the question is on the resolution, House Resolution 15. The question is, shall House Resolution 15 be adopted? Is there debate on the resolution? Be rejected, Chair. Yes, Chair's in error. The question is, shall House Resolution 15 be rejected? Is there debate on the motion?
Mr. Speaker,
Lady before you mic.
Point of clarification. So a yes vote means the resolution would be rejected.
The lady is correct. That is the recommendation as it came forward from the Rules Committee. So that's how it is being presented to the body. The lady is correct.
Speak to the resolution.
The lady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think these are very interesting and good ideas, but I feel that we need to have this debate next session prior to the rules. But I think it's good points for us to consider, but today I would encourage a yes vote and that the resolution be rejected.
So further debate on the resolution. The gentleman, the 22nd, Douglas Jeffries, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to urge a no vote on this. I think that if we could allow 100 members on a bill, the more members you get on that bill shows everybody in here that there's enough support to pass that bill. So it'd be a little hard to hold back a bill that has 100 members or maybe even 51 members. While I agree with the majority leader on this probably should be done next year, I think this gives the clerk and our staff enough time to possibly get it in our delegate console system and get it set up for the next session. So with that, I'm going to urge a no vote.
The gentleman, 66, Douglas Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also would rise in favor of the recommendation of the Rules Committee to reject this proposal. While as I've shared with my colleague from the 60th, I think that this idea has merit. But as I shared with my colleague from the 3rd, I do think it is a bit presumptuous for us to decide in this 85th legislature what the next legislature, should adopt as its rules. Now, for those that were not in Rules Committee when this proposal was first considered, we did hear from the clerk during our deliberation of the recommendation to reject this proposal. And what we heard from the clerk is that there are some significant questions as to how this would work. I do believe that the gentleman's proposed amendment would have addressed one of those as far as whether the lead sponsor would have the ability to control who's on his or her bill. But the clerk indicated that there were significant questions as to whether the other aspects of this legislation could or could not be achieved through the delegate console system. He's not saying that it can't be, but he just would like some adequate time in order to investigate to see exactly how that would work. He also shared to the Rules Committee that if it was not possible to accomplish this through an electronic means, it would likely create delays in consideration of bills based on just a volume that this proposal would entail. So I just think it's prudent to allow the clerk, as he's indicated that he will do, to determine what can and can't be done, report back to us, and that'll still provide ample time for the leadership that's selected by this legislature after our elections this year to review the clerk's findings, incorporate that into the proposed rules package for the 86th legislature, and adopt that should it prove to be viable. So again, I would urge that the resolution be rejected by a yes vote on this motion. Thank you.
Is there further debate on this resolution? The gentleman of 50th, Delegate Garcia.
Just a point of clarification. So if we vote no on this so that the resolution will not be rejected, is it adopted, or do we then have some other vote about whether the resolution is adopted?
The latter. A vote on a motion to reject is not a motion to adopt, so it would be the latter. Okay, gentleman 37, Delegate Pushkin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's been said that it was, odd for us to be voting on a rule that would be, enacted for the next legislature. But I believe that's how rules change. I mean, just the other day we introduced the former delegate from Berkeley who was here visiting us. It was good to see him. But I believe that a long time ago he changed a rule on roll call votes. On a passage of a bill, we vote roll call votes. It wasn't always like that. He voted on that. We're still doing it because it's added into the rules that we vote on at the beginning of every legislature, just like this one would. Every legislature would get a chance to vote on this just like we do on every rule. I think it's a good idea, and I'm going to be voting no, which means for the resolution.
Is there debate on the resolution? If not, the question is on then the motion that the resolution be rejected. Those in favor of the motion that the resolution be rejected will vote aye. Aye. Okay. Gentleman from 66 is right. No one demanded a roll call vote, so those in favor of roll call votes now demanded. Is the demand sustained? Demand is sustained. Those in favor of the motion that the resolution be rejected will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Okay, has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 72 ayes, 28 nays, and 0 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that resolution rejected. Chair notes that on the calendar next are 3 infrastructure naming resolutions. Are there objection to consideration of those 3 infrastructure naming resolutions in block? No objections are heard. The clerk will please report those next three naming resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution 82, Aileen Ledson Memorial Bridge. House Concurrent Resolution 85, McClintock Family Bridge. House Concurrent Resolution 88, Louis Joseph D'Antoni Memorial Road.
The question now is on the adoption of the three infrastructure naming resolutions just read by the clerk. Is there debate on any of the naming resolutions just read by the clerk? If not, those in favor of adoption will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares those three infrastructure naming resolutions adopted. Is there further unfinished business? If not, bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4105 relating to service employees with National Association for Pupil Transportation Certifications.
For what purpose does the gentleman from 31st Docket Tony seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to amend on third.
Gentleman from the 31st asks unanimous consent to offer an amendment to the bill on third reading. Are there objections? And no objections are heard. Does the gentleman wish to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read?
Yes, sir.
Are there objections? No objections are heard. The gentleman from 31st Docket Tony is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On page 7, section 8, line 163, we're going to strike subsection A in its entirety and insert the in lieu of. So after provided that after July 1st, 2022, all persons employed for the first time in one, a position with the classification title or in a multi-classification position that includes this title as director, assistant director, or coordinator of transportation, and two, which conducts performance-based evaluations in which that person assess the fitness or stability for duty of a school bus operator, shall have at least 5 years experience working in the transportation department for a county board or meet or obtain qualifications as a school bus operator within 1 year of employment. Provided further that after July 1st, 2022, any person employed or retained by a county board of education to conduct performance-based evaluations in which that person assesses the fitness and stability of a duty for school bus operator shall have at least 5 years of working experience in transportation department of a county board of education or meet the qualifications as a school bus operator. That's the amendment, Mr. Speaker, and I urge adoption.
Okay, the question now before the House is the adoption of the amendment just read by the gentleman 31st. Lady 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to speak in favor of the amendment. I appreciate the delegate working with several of us. Every county's Department of Transportation or the people that you can find to take these positions, they all have different qualifications, and I understand his need to make sure that the people that are testing bus drivers are actually bus drivers. That makes absolute sense to me, so I would urge adoption.
Ladies and gentlemen, the chair is advised by the clerk that the amendment is not showing up in the delegate console system for the members. Would any member wish to have the amendment read again in total? He read it all, so we could read it again, and we'll be happy to do that. Does any member wish to have the amendment read? It's one paragraph long. Clerk will please read the amendment.
Delegates Hanshaw, Tony, and Summers move to amend the bill on page 7, section 8, line 163 by striking subdivision A in its entirety and inserting in lieu thereof a new subdivision to read as follows. A, nothing in this subdivision prohibits a professional person or a professional educator from holding this class title, provided that after July 1, 2022, all persons employed for the first time in a position with this classification title or in a multi-classification position that includes this title as a director, assistant director, or coordinator of transportation, and two, which conducts performance-based evaluations in which the person assesses the fitness or sustainability or suitability for duty of a school bus driver, shall have at least 5 years of experience working in the transportation department of a county board or meet or obtain qualifications as a school bus operator within 1 year of employment, provided further that after July 1, 2022, any person employed or retained by a county school board to conduct performance-based evaluations in which the person assesses the fitness or suitability for duty of a school bus operator shall have at least 5 years of experience working in the transportation department of a county board or meet the qualifications of a school bus operator.
Okay, that is the amendment in its entirety. The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment just read by the clerk. Gentleman of 66, Douglas Espinosa.
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
And I apologize. I was trying to find the amendment on the system, and I wasn't fully listening to your comments. Could you explain what you're trying to accomplish through this amendment?
What this amendment does is just clarifies that the positions that director, assistant director, or coordinator, if you're going to be evaluating employees, like you're going to have your trainers and stuff, you need to be a certified school bus operator, or you need to meet and obtain that. If you don't have the certification, then they can still hire you. You just get the certification once you're hired. You have 1 year to do that.
So how does that differ from current law and current practice?
Currently, you don't have to be a school bus operator or get your certification to do the evaluations or trainings.
So this would require that you have that certification or training in order to be an evaluator?
You would have to get it or maintain it or get it once you're hired.
Okay. Do you anticipate this will create a hardship on districts in order to, will they have folks that can carry out this responsibility under your proposed amendment?
Yes, they would. You could still hire the principal or the teacher to do the job. Once they're hired, they just have 1 year to get their certification.
Thank you. Appreciate that clarification. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For the benefit again of all members, the chair is advised by the clerk that now the amendment is available in the delegate console system. If any member wishes to review the amendment in electronic copy at your console system. The question again is on the amendment as read by the clerk. Is there a further discussion or debate on the amendment as read by the clerk? If not, those in favor of adoption of that amendment will please say aye. Aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares that amendment adopted. Clerk will please read the bill a third time.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4105 relating to service employees with National Association for Pupil Transportation Certifications.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? No objections are heard. Gentleman 31st, Douglas Tony, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 4105 with the amendment, which is in Section 18A-4-8, also adds a new subsection, 18A-4-23. Under the committee substitute, it provides that service employees with National Association for Pupil Transportation Certification would be eligible for professional positions involving supervision of a county transportation department, and further requires that the county board to consider such candidates for professional positions. You would have to consider them. You don't have to give them the position, but you give them the opportunity, and then you still have the opportunity to take the professional or not. You just also would give an opportunity for service to be eligible for that position. That is the bill, Mr. Speaker, and I urge its passage.
The question now is shall the bill pass? Gentleman 15th, Douglas Foster is recognized.
Thank you. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes.
Just a question, like how this bill reads, so the school principal would have to get a CDL license or no? Like let's say the school principal was the evaluator. Within 1 year, would he have to get a CDL license?
He's going to be the trainer?
Yeah, if he was going to be the person reviewing their performance.
Then yes, they would have 1 year to get certification.
Which would be a CDL license?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is there further debate on the bill? Okay, if not, the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. Yes. Yes, lady before you, Douglas Summers is recognized. Chair's in there. Chair, Miss Douglas Summers. Nope. Okay, then the question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Okay, has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 94 ayes, 5 nays, and 1 member absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4105 relating to service employees with National Association for Pupil Transportation Certification.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4491 to establish requirements for carbon dioxide sequestration.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the chair will recognize the gentleman in the 35th Delegate Capito to explain the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The committee substitute for House Bill 4491 defines matters relating to underground carbon sequestration. It establishes the framework, a new framework, to govern these types of injection wells and the operation of such facilities. The bill does not change the common law regarding the dominance of the mineral estate. Rights of the mineral owners or lessees may not be adversely affected without a written agreement. The bill empowers the DEP to propose rules, and the DEP is to determine the content of permit applications and to establish public notices, public hearings, and comment periods. The bill contains ownership provisions governing pore space. Title to the pore space may not be severed from the surface estate. The bill does not affect transactions before the effective date if an instrument explicitly severed pore space from the surface estate. Finally, the bill declares that the operation of a facility is not a public nuisance, and the Office of Oil and Gas will have jurisdiction over later extraction of stored SO2. Mr. Speaker, that's a summarization of the bill. Happy to take questions.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? The gentleman from the first delegate, McGeehan, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill gives me a little bit of pause. I can understand the promoters of this technology and where they want to go with it. Some of it's a little bit hidden, though, in the bill. For instance, if you read at the very beginning of the bill, the purpose of the bill is to promote this sort of sequestration process. But it doesn't give a declaration as to why we should be promoting this process. In other words, there's no irreducible good that's self-evident in the very beginning of the bill, which is the purpose of the bill. It essentially just says the purpose of this bill is to encourage sequestration facilities. You know, but that's not an irreducible good. It'd be like saying the purpose of this bill is to dig holes. And the natural follow-up question is to why? Why should we be promoting this process of digging holes or pumping gas into the ground? So I think that was done on purpose just to avoid the whole climate change debate or global warming or whatever the proper nomenclature happens to be for those for that concept these days. So I have a problem with sort of the way this is formatted to begin with, but just one other point. Understand that adding such a process, such as this technology, this carbon sequestration facility technology, to some sort of enterprise, say a power plant, is very expensive, okay? And would likely prevent any such enterprise that adopted such a technology from being competitive on the market vis-a-vis their competitors. So I understand this is sort of a pilot program, and this bill is establishing simply a framework for the particular process of carbon sequestration. But going forward, really, the only way that this gets implemented on a massive scale is to force all the other competitors to adopt this process. Otherwise, the product for any enterprise is just going to be too expensive. You see what I'm saying? And we've dealt with this before. This Republican legislature, when we first gained majority, repealed the Energy Portfolio Act, which was put in place under Governor Joe Manchin at the time. Okay? So these energy portfolio schemes are designed to add in mandates that these different enterprises must adopt. So we start putting framework like this on the books, you can bet going forward there's going to be the same sort of lobbyists with this new culture in corporate America saying, okay, look, we got the pilot project of pumping gas into the ground. Now we need everybody to do it. So that's sort of the road I can see from just studying recent history where this might be directed. And for those reasons, I'm going to unfortunately have to cast a no vote.
Question again is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? The lady in 51st, Doug Fleshauer, is recognized.
Yes, question of the chair.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to clarify the chair, or the chair of
thought you said
judiciary.
the chair.
No, the chair of judiciary. So if you are a non-consenting landowner, so if it's going to be put under my property, what kind of percentage of people could force me to do this against my agreement?
75%.
Okay. All right, thank you. And so, might I continue?
Yes, lady is recognized.
So there's going to be payment to all the people for permission, and how is that done? Through negotiation?
The OGCC determines that based on a just and reasonable standard.
Okay, thank you.
The gentleman from the 53rd, Doug Jennings, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman yield? I was under the impression that this carbon dioxide sequestration was going to, if it was used, that the landowner, surface owner, that was their property.
It is, unless it was previously.
And why does anybody with the oil and gas have any say about where it goes?
No, I'm sorry. It doesn't. If I confused, I apologize. It doesn't have anything to do with the oil and gas owner. It would be the other surface owners with the pore space. Yes. The ownership of these, the ownership of what we're talking about here deals only with the pore space.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
The gentleman at 36, Doug Pritz, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chair of judiciary yield?
Yes.
Okay, so when we took testimony on this in judiciary, something that was important to me, and if you could just elaborate to the body on, is the fact that as we speak right now, there was some legal uncertainty as to, prior to this bill, this pore space, who really was the owner of it. And my understanding is this bill clarifies the ownership rights of the actual pore space. Is that?
The gentleman is correct. There was some ambiguity. This bill does seek to clarify ownership of the pore space, but would not jump in the middle or interrupt any prior existing contractual agreements between parties.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Question again is, shall the bill pass? Lady in 51st, Doug Fleshauer, for a second recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, so could you, the chair of judiciary, who is the owner of that space, say if it's underneath my property?
Right. Right now, or if this is passed?
If this passes.
If this
well, right now, I would be the owner, correct?
Well, it's a little bit ambiguous. I don't think it's very clear. The passage of this bill would make clear that as the surface owner, you own the rights to the pore space, unless there was an agreement in place that severed something between parties where those sort of rights would have run with the land.
So, right now, our family property, we have not allowed anyone to lease anything underneath the surface. So that would continue. We would continue to own everything underneath it, correct?
Yes.
But it would only, and so if we had let someone, if we had a lease for gas or coal, would it depend on what that agreement said in terms of who would own what's underneath those seams or the,
Yes, so it would depend on what the oil and gas lease said, but keep in mind that we're not talking about minerals here. We're talking about the pore space. So I don't know what the contract that you're hypothetically referring to says in it, but typically, unless it addressed the pore space with a certain specificity, then yes, as the surface owner,
would continue to have ownership. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Question again is, shall the bill pass? Is there further debate on the bill? If not, does the gentleman wish to close debate on the bill? Question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 90 ayes, 9 nays, and 1 member absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4491 to establish requirements for carbon dioxide sequestration.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4627 to provide for no more than 2 licensed laboratories for medical cannabis testing in this state.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? No objections are heard. Chairman of the 35th, Doug Capito, to explain the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We discussed this bill a little bit yesterday, so I'll keep the explanation brief. The bill limits the number of laboratories certified by the Bureau of Public Health to test cannabis products to no more than 2. Yesterday, we adopted an amendment that sunsets this provision. So with that amendment, it provides that the limitation on laboratories shall no longer have an effect after January 1st, 2025. I urge passage.
Question now before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? The gentleman of the 61st, Doug Barrett, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the chairman yield?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, where are these labs located in the state?
I know one is in Raleigh County, and the other one I am not completely sure. I thought I heard Harrison, but I'm not positive.
Harrison or Marion, I think was...
Marion, yeah.
Okay. And are you aware of who collects these samples?
The entity or the actual person?
So is it the lab that makes the collection, or is it a third party, or is it the grower or processor who makes the collection?
Before it's taken for testing or after?
So I guess who collects it to take it to be processed to the lab?
That's not in the bill. I'm not sure on that.
All right, thank you. Mr. Speaker, would the chairman of GovOrg yield for a question? Mr. Chairman, I know that you offered an amendment on this bill yesterday. Are you familiar with who makes the collection of the cannabis sample?
Yeah, absolutely. So in talking to the lab that's located in Raleigh County, what they do is they travel to the actual the grower, and they go on site and they collect the sample themselves, because you don't want to contaminate the sample, so they send their own employees up to the actual grower and they collect that sample and then transport it back to their own lab and conduct the testing and provide the test results.
And do you know who makes the collections in the Eastern Panhandle?
It would be the lab that's in Raleigh County.
The lab in Raleigh does. And
Yes.
so is there any issue with them leaving the state of West Virginia to collect this sample or to return the sample to their lab?
No, there's not. I actually talked to them about this very specifically. What they do is they travel through Virginia. So what you would leave Raleigh County and travel over to 64 and take your way up through Virginia to get there, and take about 4 hours. They usually stay there overnight. They send 2 analysts, they're better trained ones, and they stay overnight in a hotel and then go there about 8 o'clock the next morning and go on site and collect the samples then. On the way home, though, they take the scenic route through Romney and a few other places, so they stay fully within state borders. They've collected samples for them for a while, and I was told by them that they made a special agreement with them that they would only charge them for the time on site and the trip up, so as not to have them paying overwhelmingly for this elongated trip.
Okay,
and it's worked good so far.
I'm sorry. So there's no additional charge to a grower or processor in the Eastern Panhandle because of the long travel time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great. One last question. Do you know why the lab in Marion or Harrison doesn't do the collection for the Eastern Panhandle? Do you have any idea?
I am unaware why they don't.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question again is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman 15, Tuckett Foster is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know in this area we're all about removing red tape for businesses and allowing people to locate in West Virginia and licensing. So that's what I'm standing up for here. Just wanted to urge rejection of this bill because I believe that this is something where we need to allow more people to locate here, more business locate here, and not be engaging in protectionism. Thank you.
Gentleman 30, Tuckett Bates is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very briefly, I just want to bring to the body's attention the reason for this, and it's the fragility of our medical cannabis program. I mean, I've spoken on this issue over a number of years, and it's my view that without an adult use cannabis program, the economic viability of our medical cannabis program, it just isn't there. We passed a bill out of here in 2017, I believe, to provide an opportunity for patients to get medicine. And here we are in 2022, and we're just now getting dispensaries open where a very limited number of patients, in fact, there's only 6,000 that have been able to obtain the necessary documentation to even enter a store to get medicine, is available. So we run the risk of losing this medicine, this industry, before it gets on its very feet, because we've hamstrung it so strongly with our existing regulations that deal with medical cannabis. And that is why we're dealing with this bill. The reason we need to limit the number of labs to 2 is because there's barely enough work for 1. And you can't have 1 lab, because if 1 lab goes down, you ain't got any labs. That's how bad it is. So we need to pass this bill so that we have stability in this area, and then we need to come back and look at the overall regulatory structure of our medical cannabis industry and how we approach this product moving forward, because if we don't, we'll be back looking at other bills. And there will be no growers in the Eastern Panhandle or anywhere else. There'll be no processors in the Eastern Panhandle or anyone else. And there'll be no labs, and we will not have the availability of this product. So I would be a yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from the 29th, Tuckett Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. the Freedom Corner over here apparently has a little rift about this, which is fine. I realize that this is a limitation. But let's talk about why. You've limited everything in marijuana. You've limited the number of growers, you've limited the number of suppliers, you've limited the number of processors, you've limited the number of distributors. And what you set up back in 2019 was an application process. There was an application process to do literally everything in this. If you wanted to get it, if you wanted to prescribe it, if you wanted to grow it, if you wanted to sell it, if you wanted to process it, and if you wanted to be a lab that tested it, you had to fill out an application. There was a deadline. Two labs filled out that application. And they were asked to do it by the government. The executive branch, DHHR, asked these labs, will you apply to do this? We can't get our own labs up and running in time. We need the private industry's help to do the testing. So these labs, including the one in Raleigh County, invested millions and millions of dollars in hiring new analysts, getting new equipment for an industry that was supposed to provide a return to them. And they're still waiting. Those millions of dollars in capital that they spent at the request of the state of West Virginia has not been utilized. I talked about this yesterday. They are currently testing in labs about 5% of what their capacity is. That is how fragile, as the gentleman from the 30th mentioned, how fragile our medical marijuana industry is right now. If these labs don't have some time to recoup that investment and the moral obligation that we made to them by asking them to get into this, somebody needs to turn around and write them a check back if we're not willing to pass this bill. We're the ones that they applied to do it. Now what's DHHR doing? They went beyond the application date, and they are actually going out and trying to recruit more out-of-state companies to come in here and compete with people that partnered with the state of West Virginia. This bill gives them 3 years to recoup their investment, and is a showing of good faith by this body, because I'm telling you right now, industries are watching this, and when we are trying to invite new corporations in and expand into new industries, if they see us do this to the labs that we made a promise 2 years ago, they're going to remember it. They're going to say, wait a minute, you remember what they did over here? Maybe we don't need to go. This bill just extends our moral obligation for 3 years to give them time to recoup their investment, and I urge adoption.
Gentleman from 53rd, Dr. Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman from the 30th yield?
Be happy to. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So you're telling me if we vote no on this, we're liable to lose our marijuana growers and everything in this state?
Yes.
That is the greatest thing I've heard in 5 years. I hope that we all light this up red today so we can get rid of this out of our state. When you do this, think of the children that we're trying to take care of. These are the ones we should be protecting. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman 37, Dr. Pushkin's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just got to process that for a second. Would the gentleman from the 15th yield for a couple of questions? The Vice Chair of the Board, would you yield?
Sure.
Thank you. I had a hard time hearing what your argument against this was. Can you sum it up for me again real quick?
I was just wanting to make sure that this was more open rather than just eliminating it to 2.
Okay. Because you are in agreement that this is a valid industry, that it could employ a lot of people and bring some economic development to the state?
With the medical cannabis industry, I'm actually okay with the medical cannabis industry.
Okay.
And I mean, obviously, there's certain things that you have to look at when you start looking at. There's obvious limitations we need to put on it. I mean, if you're asking about my objections to the medical cannabis industry, I think I was a no on the bill that passed before because there's some issues in the employment process that make it difficult for actually handling somebody that would have a medical cannabis card and issues along those lines. But this is something where I'm just trying to keep the industry open for more labs to be located in our state.
Okay. Well, we were both here in 2017, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that's when we originally passed the Medical Cannabis Act. I believe there were two competing strike and inserts. One that left it open how many permits there would be, how many licenses there would be for growers, processors, dispensaries, and another strike and insert that was very limited. Do you remember how you voted on that?
Yes, I do.
How was that?
And that was with the growers process. I voted in favor of, I think, the Judiciary Chair's amendment.
Which greatly limited the amount of licenses that went out,
It
correct?
did decrease the amount of licenses that were allowed for growers and processors.
Okay. All right, thank you. I just wanted to clear that up. Thanks.
The gentleman 22nd, Dr. Jeffries, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to urge rejection on this bill, too. I don't think we need to be limiting the market. If government made some promises to a private industry, they probably should have stayed out of it. I don't remember us voting on that bill up here to say, hey, let's get you to apply. But essentially all this is a certificate of need for laboratories. So I'm going to urge rejection.
The gentleman of third, Dr. Fluharty, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want a quick comment, and we had a nice laugh over maybe possibly shutting down the medical cannabis industry. There's a good laugh on this floor, and the rest of the country's laughing at us because clearly the supermajority has no idea what the industry does and who it helps. So I'm going to go over the criteria real quick. Cancer patients, those with multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, epilepsy, post-traumatic stress disorder, our veterans, the very first patient in this state in Morgantown, Purple Heart recipient. You want to laugh about that? Think it's a laughing matter, helping people? This is ridiculous. It's a reason why it's taken years to get this system in place. Because maybe you're not exactly as pro-life as you think. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman of 37th, Dr. Pushkin, is recognized.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. Would the chair of GovOrg please yield?
Which chair? GovOrg?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. The lab that is in the district that you represent, correct?
Yes.
And how much, could you talk about the investment that they've made? How much?
I know it's over $2 million at this point, and they've hired, I believe, I want to say it's over 10 new people, encroaching, and keeps going upwards as the volume picks up, and they're processing more. Because this is just now getting off the ground. This equipment sat idle for several years until they started getting, the product into test, and we're seeing new jobs come in. I mean, these jobs aren't just, they're good jobs. Mm-hmm. They're science jobs. There's science jobs in the coal fields, and that's important, because what this lab used to do primarily was test coal. That's what it did. It's been there forever, and they primarily did coal testing. And as that's declined, they looked at this as an opportunity to jump in, and the state asked them to do it. Mm-hmm. And they've converted themselves over to this, and that put them in a very fragile position. And then all of a sudden, there's competition being recruited to come in when it was unanticipated from the forefront.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was very informative. Can I briefly speak to the bill?
Jim was recognized.
Thank you. On the surface, when I first saw the short title of this bill, I'm not for protectionism, and I didn't understand why we would need to limit it to just 2. However, as was stated before, we've limited the amount of growing licenses to 10. I believe that we've only issued 6. I think it's around 6. I know we haven't issued all 10. The processors are limited number 2. It's limited to 10. There aren't 10 processors. The dispensaries, I think we changed that and allowed for 100. There are a lot less than that. Quite simply, there is, because of the issue that I was trying to address yesterday with the limited amount of allowable qualifying conditions, there simply aren't that many people participating in the program. So what you have is a locally owned family business down in the southern coal fields that has invested a lot of money in transitioning over to testing this, and there's just with the way we set up the law back in 2017, which was incredibly flawed in my opinion, it's a very limited amount of product that they have to test. If you want to vote for a locally owned business that's been in business, I believe, since the 80s here in West Virginia, just to give them a little bit of a head start on this, you'd vote for the bill. If you want to vote for some out-of-state company to come in, basically wait it out because they can afford to just sit idle before there's any product available. If you want to allow for that while they just sit there and wait with money they're making from other states and wait on our locally owned business to lose this investment, well, then you'd vote against it. I'm going to vote in favor of a West Virginia family business and try to give them a little bit of a help. And you talk about protectionism, I see it done for car dealers in here all the time. All the time. So I don't think there's anything wrong with helping out a family business in southern West Virginia, so I'll vote for it.
The question again is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Does the gentleman from 35th wish to close debate on the bill? The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ask Lady from 35th, Douglas Young, your vote's not registered. Clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 67 ayes, 33 nays, and 0 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4627, to provide for no more than 2 licensed laboratories for medical cannabis testing in this state.
Are there amendments to the title?
Delegate Steele moves to amend the title.
Question before the House is the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of adoption of the title amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the title amendment adopted. The title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4712, require the prompt enrollment in payment plans for costs, fines, forfeitures, restitution, or penalties in circuit court and magistrate court.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? No objections are heard. Gentleman, 32nd, Douglas Fast, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 4712 is to require the prompt enrollment in payment plans for costs, fines, forfeitures, restitution, or penalties in circuit courts and magistrate courts. Specifically, the bill requires an incarcerated person to enroll in a payment plan with the court within 30 days after the person's release if the court was a magistrate court, and within 90 days after the person's release if the court was a circuit court. The bill requires a person who is not incarcerated, if the person requires a payment plan, to enroll immediately upon entry of the order imposing the penalty. The bill requires the payment plan to be paid within 3 years if in magistrate court and within 5 years if in circuit court. That is a summary, Mr. Speaker. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 93 ayes, 5 nays, and 2 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4712, require the prompt enrollment in payment plans for costs, fines, forfeitures, restitution, or penalties in circuit court and magistrate court.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Are there other bills on third reading? If not, bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 221, establishing occupational therapy compact.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 452, permitting civil remedies for unauthorized disclosure of intimate images.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2092, requiring each high school student to complete a full credit course of study in personal finance.
Laid in the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to postpone action 1 day.
Are there objections? No objections are heard. Action will be postponed 1 day on committee substitute for House Bill 2092. Next bill on second reading.
House Bill 4331, West Virginia's Urban Mass Transportation Authority Act.
Are there amendments?
Delegate Capito moves to amend the bill. On page 1, section 4A, line 6, after the word authorities, by inserting the words only for Urban Mass Transportation Authority employees whose public authority employer is a recipient of federal funds.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment just read by the clerk. Gentleman 35th, Delegate Capito.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We'll explain the full contents of the bill tomorrow, but much of the thrust behind the bill is to ensure that our public transit authorities continue to operate on federal funding that requires certain language to be in the code, and we wanted that language to be as narrowly tailored as possible. That's the purpose of the amendment, to ensure that it applies only to urban mass transit authorities, urban mass transit authority employees, where the public funds are, or where federal funds are received for a basis of that language. So I urge adoption.
Question is on the amendment. Again, as read by the clerk. Is there discussion on the amendment? If not, those in favor of adoption of the amendment will please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares that amendment adopted. Are there further amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading. Next bill on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4492, creating the Division of Multimodal Transportation.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4510, to provide that third grade students be competent in reading and math before moving on to fourth grade.
Laid in the 49th. Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading. Next bill on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4634, relating to occupational licensing or other authorization to practice.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4675, relating to autonomous delivery vehicles.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4743, relating to security and surveillance requirements of medical cannabis organization facilities.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4773, adoption of the FCC customer service and technical standards and requiring certain cable operators to operate an in-state customer call center.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced. Are there other bills on second reading? If not, bills on first reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4408, relating to contracts for construction of recreational facilities in state parks and forests.
Bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4419, allowing candidate committees and campaign committees to make contributions to affiliated state party executive committees.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4473, to provide certain members of the state police with locality pay to offset the high cost of living in certain counties.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4516, to require medication-assisted treatment programs to have written policies concerning community relations.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4540, to update all retirement plans to comport with federal law.
Bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4612, decreasing the time period of eligibility for non-duty disability from 10 to 5 or more years of service for municipal police officers and firefighters' retirement.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4613, relating to increasing the multiplier for use in determining accrued benefit in the West Virginia Municipal Police Officers and Firefighters Retirement System.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4614, providing optional retirement service credit for unused accrued annual or sick leave days for municipal police and firefighters.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4657, creating the Critical Mineral Investment Tax Credit Act of 2022.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4660, establishing the status of beds when an intermediate care facility for individuals with intellectual disabilities closes.
The bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4662, relating to licensure of Head Start facilities in this state.
The bill will be advanced.
House Bill 4827, relating to the promotion and development of public use vertiports.
The bill will be advanced. Are there further bills on first reading? If not, leaves of absence, introductions. Lady from the 3rd, Douglas Storch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Delegate Fluharty and I are pleased to have a friend of ours in the gallery. She is also my former hockey buddy, Wendy Scatterday. She is escorted by her nephews Eli and Christopher and their grandmother, Kay Garib. I would ask them all to stand. The House, please make them welcome.
Are there further introductions? Okay, if not, miscellaneous business. Okay, lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move, subject to announcements, the House recess until 5 p.m.
The question is that subject to announcements, the House stand in recess until 5 p.m. Are there announcements, lady from the 49th?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Rules will meet at 10:45 tomorrow morning behind the chamber.
Gentleman of the 10th, Douglas Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Finance will meet today at 3 p.m. in the House Finance Committee room. The agenda is posted. Also, on Friday morning at 9 a.m., the agenda will be posted. Thank you.
Gentleman of the 32nd, Douglas Fast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Judiciary will meet this afternoon at 2:30 p.m. in the House Judiciary Committee room. The agenda is posted. Also, the House Committee on Judiciary will meet tomorrow morning, February 25, 9 a.m. Judiciary Committee room. The agenda will be posted.
Gentleman 35th, Douglas Capito.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I know I've mentioned it a few times. The Tech Caucus will meet upstairs. There is food. It has arrived. We'll have a presentation on e-gaming. Welcome everybody to join. Again, that's in the House Judiciary Committee room immediately following the floor session. Thank you.
Gentleman 51st, Douglas Stowler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Education will meet at 3 p.m. in the Education Committee room. The agenda is posted. The Republican members of the committee will caucus at 2:30 in the chairman's office.
The gentleman of 15th, Douglas Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Government Organization will meet today at 3 p.m. in the Government Organization Committee room, and we'll have a caucus at 2:30 of the Republican members in the chairman's office, and the agenda will be posted.
The gentleman of the 40th, Douglas Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Health and Human Resources will meet at 1:30 in the GovOrg Committee room. Republican members of Health and Human Resources will caucus at 1:15 in the Vice Chair's office. The agenda is posted.
Okay, are there other announcements? Okay, if not, the question is on the, yes, the gentleman from 3rd, Douglas Fluharty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Democrats will caucus immediately following floor session in 2:52, and lunch will be provided.
Again, are there further announcements? Okay, if not, the question is on the motion that the House stand in recess until 5 o'clock. Those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed will say no. Okay, the ayes have it. The motion is adopted. We will be in recess until 5 o'clock.